What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the reunion of Final Fantasy VII Remake podcast. I am your host, Kairosis, and joining me once again today, I have my incredible co-host, Vyzz. How are you doing, Vyzz?
I'm good, as always. Just, I feel a little bit exhausted today, but it should be fine. How about you?
I'm doing good. I also feel the same. I'm a little burnt out.
Oh boy.
And but you know, the weather's been really beautiful here, and I've been trying to get outside a little bit more and enjoy that and do some stuff around the house, and yeah, just trying to enjoy my time, you know, at home during this whole pandemic, and also being super busy with the podcast and other projects that I'm working on right now, and working from home as well, so it's taking up a lot of my time. But
I feel you.
I am super excited, though, to finally get to record part 3 of our complete spoiler cast for this game. It's been a long time coming. We know, and we, you know, talked a lot about a lot of the other aspects about the game, but today we are finally going to be talking about that crazy ending to this game, and we'll be going in depth with about the ending and the plots, the secrets, theories, predictions, and all of that incredible stuff that obviously you guys have been waiting so long to hear about. So we can't wait to share that with you. But before we do that, I just want to let you guys know who Vyzz is. So Vyzz is the creator of the Cosmo Canyon Observatory YouTube channel. You do amazing analysis videos on all of the, you know, amazing media that we get from the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And if you guys did not do so yet, you should definitely go and like and subscribe and just join his incredible community, because honestly, I mean, what else are you guys doing anyway if you haven't liked his stuff or checked, you know, the Cosmo Canyon Observatory out yet? You really have to. It's a great community. And if you love, you know, this game as much as we both do, it's a great opportunity for you guys to meet some other people in the community. And if you're feeling disconnected, to communicate with other people who love this game and who are just as big, you know, fans about this game as we are. All right, so like I said, we are going to be talking about the ending of this game. We are going to be going into detail about, you know, theories and our predictions for where the story might go in future installments of this game. And we are starting with that right now. All right, so I'm just going to give my opinions about the ending and basically go into a little bit more detail of my opinions, I guess, about the ending, and maybe, you know, my theories that I have kind of, you know, boiling here in my head, if that makes sense, over the past, like, how many weeks that, you know, we've had since we've finished playing this game, and, you know, haven't had a chance to kind of talk with you, Vyzz, about it yet. But so first of all, that ending was insane. So
oh boy. Oh boy.
When I was finally finished playing, I kind of had to stop and walk away from it, and really, I mean, it took maybe about 2 weeks before I was really trying, you know, until I really kind of wrapped my brain around, or my mind around, everything that happened. And I was trying to kind of piece it together, because I think that what was happening was they were sprinkling a lot of these story elements, kind of hinting at this kind of ending, I think, throughout the whole game. And I don't think that I really realized that until after the game ended, and then I kind of started my second replay on hard mode. And also I researched online a bunch of you know, theories and everything, trying to figure out basically what happened at the end. And then I had a better understanding, I think, what happened. But then there were things that, you know, that I found that I think were sprinkled through the game throughout the whole time, and I didn't really grab onto those things. I don't know why. I think I was just so focused on just, like, enjoying the game, and kind of, I think, like, my nostalgia glasses were just, like, really thick.
Yeah.
And, like, I just wasn't getting, like, I don't know, the hints at, like, you know, the Sephiroth, and how the different versions of Sephiroth, and how, you know, this Sephiroth isn't the Sephiroth that we know from the original kind of thing, and potentially, you know, the time travel and everything going on. But I don't think that I was just kind of trying to figure out like, oh, okay, so they changed it so that he appears at the beginning because, you know, and then after I watched that, like the whole Max Dude Easy Allies video, I was like, oh my God. It was like this light bulb just went off inside of my brain, and I'm like, oh my God, this is I can see like where they're coming from. You know, if you guys didn't watch that video yet, it's 3 hour long video. But honestly, if you've been listening to us, like 3 hour video, 3 hours is nothing. Like you guys, after listening to us, you're fine. Just go watch that if you haven't watched it yet. The Easy Allies Max Dude Spoilercast video that they did, 3 hours, deep dive into the theories, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel more complete now that I did all of the research and I've kind of come back to the game, and I did start, like I said, another playthrough. I'm gonna restart probably again because I stopped at chapter 3 or chapter 4, I forget, and I haven't played it for a few weeks now because I've been so busy doing other things as well. So I need to go back to it, kind of restart it again. But yeah, anyway, I just feel like after watching that video, and then also I read the White Black live stream extra chapters that were translated, I guess, that like on the livestream.net from On the Way to the Smile, right? On the Way to a Smile, sorry. That also gave a lot of hints about the story about this game, like the ending, basically, because I loved everything in this game. Honestly, I think this is like my most favorite game that I've played in a long time. JRPG / RPG wise, it's and other genres as well, but you know, this is a JRPG. So if I'm thinking about other RPGs that I've played and JRPGs that I've played, this is the best one that I've played in a long time, in a very long time. And I didn't mind that the ending was like, what the hell? I didn't care. Like I didn't care that they changed things. I loved that. Like a lot of people didn't enjoy that, and they don't enjoy having to go on the internet and research, you know, theories and other things about trying to understand what happens in a game. Like I don't care. I love that. I love doing that about whatever video games that this happens to, where they don't give you everything right away. And we know this is like the first part of probably multiple other parts. We don't know how many, but I'm hoping that, you know, we'll get more about this stuff in the future installments. And then we'll kind of look back and be like, oh, look, we were right about this or that, or, oh, we were totally off base, when we finally have the complete, you know, collection of all the parts and the stories done and everything. But I'm fine with that. That's something that I actually love about video games, when it's not, everything isn't spelled out for you and isn't just delivered on a silver platter and everything's just tied up in the end, you know, and then everything's just resolved and then you can feel good and then you kind of move on.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is being spoon-fed everything is just not stimulating enough for me.
That's like a lot of movies now are very much like that as well. Like, I'm so sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but the new Star Wars movies, you know, are very much like it's like the story elements are, they don't really take a stance, you know, like it's very much like, oh, they kind of gave us a lot of new characters and they didn't pay off in the end, and they kind of gave us some, I'm trying to think of the words, like not controversial, but like just to kind of give us a message, you know, like as viewers when we're watching it, like take a stance on something and then stick with that as a creator, you know, or as an artwork. But they felt the need to kind of just not choose a side or not, and then stick with it. It was very much like, you know, wishy-washy. And then in the end, you're kind of left like you don't know how you feel, but also you just feel like you saw a lot of amazing explosions. But for me, like when I watched them all, I didn't feel anything like how I felt when I watched the originals. and I didn't feel, I don't know, I just didn't feel anything like when I was watching those movies.
Yeah, they seemed to just go through the motions and show you the events and the dialogue and the effects, but the substance was a little bit lacking. I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was not that. This
Nope.
was very much, and I know this is a video game. I know I'm comparing like Star Wars movies to a video game, but this was a story, right? Like it's a JRPG. We're getting a story in video game format, basically. And yes, it's, we've got like combat and everything. This game has cutscenes, and I just felt something when I played this game, and I loved that. And I love that the developers took a stance and they were like, no, we're adding the whispers. And it's kind of like this super meta game element where it's all of the people who are fans of the original, that it's kind of like a representation of those people who love the original but they wanted a one-to-one remake. For me, that's how I interpreted the whispers. Every time that they tried, like the story was deviating from the original, they showed up in the game. And that's a super clever way to kind of like a super meta way to be able to kind of change things if they want, but also update the story and kind of also change it in a way that still respects the original, but also like changes it for new fans so that new people can access the story if they want to. And also it's like it's not holding it back. You know what I mean? To kind of push it like forward and give the developers the freedom to kind of explore where the story might go in the future installments, And I'm okay with that. And I was listening to another podcast. Somebody said they hated that, and they said it was a cop-out and it's just not a clever way at all. As a writer, everybody has their own opinions. I can understand where that person's coming from, but I thought this was super cool, and it's super ballsy. It is so ballsy of Square Enix to do that to their own story, And,
Definitely, yeah.
like, you know what I mean? I just thought it was ballsy. I was like, holy shit, like what? Like, what? That's what they're doing to their game? This is like their pride and joy, like, golden game. I mean, yes, the other Final Fantasy games were super successful as well, but this is like, what? And they did that? I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm liking where Square is taking this. Can they successfully tell this entire story from beginning to end, like, successfully? I don't know, but based on what we played and what we got in this game, I'm confident in them to deliver. I think it might be a little batshit crazy. Like we've got Nomura like on here, like, I mean, you play Kingdom Hearts, some of that shit's like, what is happening? I'm not a big Kingdom Hearts fan, and I haven't played all the games in that series, but from what I've heard of other people talking about those games, is kind of like, what? You know what I mean?
It's
because
very
Nomura
complicated,
goes, yeah, like, but this, I honestly think that the story is going to continue the way that we know and how we love this story, but I think they're going to play with it a little bit more.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Also, like, they gave us what we wanted, because they gave us a pretty close, like, one-to-one remake of the original. They gave us all the nostalgia, but they also still rewrote history and kind of gave us like this, we don't know where the story's gonna go. I just think that's so insane. Anyway, I jumped around a lot of different points, and I did not go in sequential order of all the notes I've wrote on this document, but
doesn't matter.
Anyway, so what do you think? You talk for a bit, because I just talk for a lot.
Well, it depends on what I should talk about, because if I talk about the ending and my interpretation and the theories and explain things, then we'll you need to strap in, guys. You need to strap in. So I probably should just talk about like how I experienced it. Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna just say, just
Like
give
overall.
us like your general thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah.
like an overall
opinion.
Mhm.
I already said something in the last or the one before episode of the podcast that at first it was like what the hell is happening here? What's happening here? Then I was like confused and said, I kind of don't like this. It's an extreme deviation from everything we've been before, and Kingdom Hearts Advent Children combined, building, slicing, jumping all around. I don't know. But in the end, when I went back to certain scenes, rewatched the scenes, thought about everything and how everything connects, and then finally, after kind of building a picture in my head of the whole thing, I started listening to other podcasts and other people's opinions and theories, and then a few holes I still had in my theories were filled, and I understood a few slight things better. Yeah. And now, after all this research and thinking about it even more, and making notes again and again and again, because I kept changing a few things, talking to other people, it's I think it's starting to become something really interesting. Of course, it's something that not everyone will like, depending on what they want out of Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and what they want from the story, and how attached they are to the story, and how they are attached to the original themes and main points or main messages. Because if you keep it at that, or if you keep being attached to those important things of the original and what Hironobu Sakaguchi had planned for the Final Fantasy games and his vision for the Final Fantasy games, then you probably won't like this new direction, because it's kind of a departure from some themes and some ideas, some the vision. But yeah, in the end, Final Fantasy is over 30 years old. Final Fantasy VII is over 20 years old. And in my opinion, you can't just stick to the letter to everything that's been before. That's especially because the original is still there. There's a PS4 version. It's not perfect. There are still flaws in there, but it's still a version that's perfectly accessible. The PS5 will be backwards compatible. It will still be there. There's still a PC version, a Steam version that's been modded to hell and back. Really great mods. The new threat mod is really good. Then there's the Echo S mod that's still in development, which adds voice acting, new side quests, and whatnot. So the original won't go away anytime soon. And if there's a PC version of the remake, there will be mods to no end as well. So if you want Final Fantasy VII that is devoid of all the new stuff, the whispers and the ending, like the second half of Chapter 18, you'll probably get it. Yeah, for sure, because people will mod the game however they want, and then it's free game.
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, only if you're like hellbent on, no, I want from Square Enix a full game that's tailored to my expectations, but this just won't happen anymore. It's a bummer in some respects, I get it, but in the end, showing a little bit of more openness is always good to be able to enjoy new works, new takes on stories. Of course, if they completely botch it, like almost objectively completely botch it, and don't stay true to the characters, don't stay true to like the main chain of events, and change all the enemies and stuff, okay, then must say, no, this is just not Final Fantasy anymore. This is crap. But when you look at it, all the main events are there. They went so much more in depth. They went all out in everything. See Wall Market, for example.
They did.
And all the enemies, well, almost all the enemies are still there, intact. The goofy designs, the Hell House, for heaven's sake, is still there. Yeah, it's not just an enemy. It's really feel the love that's been poured in that. But I've talked about this in the last few episodes too. But and also the characters, they nailed the characters. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I like the characters now even more because all the nuances are there and all the
Yeah.
like the quirks they have and their good sides and the bad sides, and
Yeah.
it's so much more nuanced and so much more subtle and more interesting and layered. So in that respect, I must say 95% of this game is almost perfect. Well, let's say 90%. 5% is, well, all the gripes we have with the gameplay stuff, things that need
Yeah.
to be polished for the next game, and maybe
But
some
that's so small.
yeah,
Like,
it's
those
comparatively
things are...
small, yeah, definitely. And some side quests that were
Exactly.
underwhelming, not crap, but underwhelming. And the rest is the rest of those 100%. The last 5% is this completely new thing they shoved in there, like the whispers and
Mm-hmm.
the other Sephiroth and the Neo battle at the end, and this whole realm of the whispers. I think the Singularity it's called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. If you like it, perfect. If you don't like it, well, perfect too. It's you do you.
They're not... The thing is that, like, they're not actually changing the story
Not
of the
really, yeah.
original. Because
No.
the events in the original game still happened and are
Yep.
still canon, because now what they've done is they've actually preserved that.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this game now, pretty much we know that it's Sephiroth in the future, time traveling and trying to change the events that happened. And like we said, the Whispers are trying to preserve everything that happened in the original. The original has actually happened.
Mm-hmm. It did,
through this timeline. Like, it has happened. Everything in that timeline is preserved. Nothing is changed. This game started out like the original game, as yes, it's kind of like the same timeline, but it's not, because now that timeline's been changed and this is its own separate timeline. So it's like they haven't really, people that didn't like it, they haven't changed the story. Like, the original story is still intact and has happened. But this is another version of Sephiroth that is tampering with the timelines and trying to do something. And we're going to talk a little bit about this later. And now, they're free to explore where they want to take the story in the future. Even though there was an article that was released, was it Kataze that said that, like, this story events are still going to play out like the original anyway in the future parts, so they're not going to really deviate from that. So, I mean, it depends on if you were open to receiving something different than what you know, and they were really open about what we were getting from the beginning. But I can understand if you weren't up to date on that because you didn't follow any of the media releases, you didn't watch any YouTube videos, you didn't watch any trailers, you have no idea, you just saw that, the game cover and you're like, oh sweet, I'm gonna pick this up. But even then, wouldn't you be more open to it because you didn't care as much to kind of like research it and educate yourself, I guess? Like, wouldn't you be more open to be like, oh, okay, this is different from what I thought it was gonna be? You know what I mean? Like, I see like really hardcore fans of the game who have been like combing through all the information online, who knew that we weren't getting an exact copy. I mean, like, that came out years and years and years and years ago, so, but I understand it's not what people wanted, but the timeline's still preserved. Like, they preserved the timeline of the original. It's canon.
Or let's say the timelines, because I just realized this before, because in the original you had so many choices and some had real impact, like the different dates in the Gold Saucer, and some other minor things like different dialogue. And if you're being pedantic, or if we're being pedantic, those are kind of different timelines. It's still the main flow of the whole destiny, planets, will, preordained crap, whatever, is still there, but there are minor deviations all along the way. And still in the remake too, we can get different dresses, which also have different scenes or different versions of the scenes. You have two different chain of side quests in Wall Market, one given from Madame M, one from Chocobo Sam. This is also different, can be different. The resolution scene at the start of chapter 14 is also different depending on which character you preferred, kind of, implicitly by doing or not doing side quests. So even those can be like slight deviations, slight variations of the same timeline, like side timelines, so to speak. And well, we get to that later, but Zack's scene is also something like that, and also completely new timeline. But we'll get to that. So it's in the end, if you're really thinking it through, multiple timelines already existed, kind of. They were just part of the story, part of the plot. Nothing. Yeah. They were just there. Well, you could argue, well, isn't that the case in all JRPGs or role-playing games where you have choices? Well, yeah, it's there. Now they're just doing something with it. Whether you like it or not, that's a whole different story. But it's still,
that's the thing.
Yeah,
it's like when you play other role-playing games and you make a choice. That's it's just like real life. You make a choice. You only have one life. You can't experience what would happen if you choose the other thing.
No, you can't.
Unless you get reincarnated as the same person and live through your life a second time, and at that point you choose a different thing instead. Like,
kind of Groundhog's Day.
Exactly, but why do you think we're going back and replaying it and choosing different things to see what happens on our second playthrough or whatever? Like,
it's creating a second timeline.
Pretty much, you know. And I think it's brilliant. I like, after that, I left and actually read stuff and tried to piece this together inside of my brain. Then I was like, you know what? It was actually, I thought it was really smart of them to do. Obviously, there are issues with doing this, especially with time travel and timelines. Can be very hard to understand and convoluted.
Yeah,
as
and
well, right?
Contradicting if you're not paying attention enough by creating those
exactly
paradoxes and whatnot.
Yeah, I wrote that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but like, I respect what they did with it, and the original timeline is intact still, and it has happened beat by beat. And now we've got, this is kind of a glimpse into an alternate timeline, basically. And I think their answer to that was, like, having any issues with having an alternate timeline were the Whispers, right? Because that was the reasoning for them, because they're arbiters of fate. They're trying to preserve fate from the original timeline, and every time something deviated from that, they kind of showed up to preserve it, and in the end, they were destroyed. So pretty much anything can happen now.
Yeah, the thing is, if you pay close attention, the Whispers only interfere or start watching if there's a potential, or if there's really a choice that will have the main path deviate. Like, if just small choices that don't affect the main chain of events, they don't care. Like getting different dresses, or doing quests, or doing not doing the quests, or just other things that may happen differently in the story when you compare it to the original, that don't have a tangible impact on the main story. Main story still plays out the same, but certain aspects are different. Yeah. This is completely fine, because that's not the issue. The issue is they need the main flow from inception to oblivion, as Red 13 put it. That main flow needs to stay the same. Like, the end goal, the end point needs to happen, and maybe some other key points in between that leads to this end point. Everything in between can be deviating, and then as long as it converges again at the next main point or milestone, however you want to call it, no worries. That's also something of interest, which we'll get to in the sex scene later.
Yeah, the beginning of this game is I think the beginning of this game is just the original timeline,
Yep.
beat by beat. Like I
It is.
honestly think that it's the original timeline, and that's what we got right up until pretty much Aerith is on the street, and then well, right before that,
Yeah. And Sephiroth
when
shows up first.
Sephiroth
Yeah.
shows up first.
Mm.
That's the first time that we see a tampering in the timeline, I think, with Sephiroth, because he leads Cloud away, and they have that conversation in the alleyway about like protecting. I forget now, but he's talking about his mom, right?
Yeah.
And we see like Nibelheim like burning in the background.
And he also really says almost, really, it was almost tangible, or it like almost a visceral description of how he killed his mother, Cloud's mother, to really make him angry.
Yeah, and at the end
Yeah.
he says like, we need to, don't you want to save the planet or something? Like he's right, and then it's over. And I think right up until that point, it's honestly just a beat by beat, and it's like it's the original timeline, and we're just seeing it in like 2020 HDR.
Yeah, it's just fleshed
like,
out. Yeah.
We're seeing it, yeah, and we're seeing it. It's literally a beat by beat recreation outside of the beginning scene when we see Aerith in the alleyway and the One Wing Angel music plays.
Yeah, right. This is a little bit different, yeah.
That's the only difference, but I think she senses him, and so it's like that's pretty much it, but everything else until that point. And then of course we see him touch her shoulder, and then the whispers show up and all that stuff happens basically, and that's like the first time where it changes, right? Like it's deviated from the original timeline, and then you're kind of, that's why it's like people didn't understand, it didn't make sense to people like what was happening, but it does make sense to me like now, just going back and seeing that again. I'm like, okay, because it's just changes to the timeline, and that's when the whispers show up, and it makes perfect sense. And then things you'll see start to change from that point on from the original.
We'll have a field day in maybe, let's say, 10 minutes or something, because I have so much to say about all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting, it's especially if you start going through the game again and notice all the little details and how everything connects, then it suddenly makes so much sense. And if you're open to this new take on the plot, I'd say, not the story per se, but the plot and how and where it might lead to, if you're open to that, then you'll be in for a treat. And if not, if you kind of feel like, no, they shouldn't change anything, just retell the story as I know it, done. And yeah, I'm sad for you, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately. But for my part, I don't mind changes as long as they're good. Like, bottom line good. Some things might be a little cringy, or maybe like eyebrow raising, but if it's like a net positive, I'm fine with that. And so far, it's definitely a net positive. Definitely.
Yeah, obviously we didn't get like a 1-to-1 remake of the original game. I think that I, like, in hindsight, like I like this more than how much I would have liked just a 1-to-1 remake of the original. I think
for
I
sure.
like this more.
Yeah, it has much more potential.
I don't know though, because I haven't played that. I haven't played a 1-to-1 remake of the original. I haven't done that, so I don't know. But I think that maybe like initially I would have liked that more, but later on I don't think I would have liked it as much as I liked what they did with this part of the game as a whole.
the problem with a 1-to-1 remake is, yes, it looks pretty. Yes, we have more of the characters. Like if the additional banter and all the additional stuff was still there, but the story beats were exactly the same. And yeah, it would have been interesting, but in the end, you finished it. Oh yeah, now I've learned practically nothing new. It's just fleshed out more, but it's still the same. And I knew what was happening. I now know that it's still the same, and everything that happens will still be the same. I can look forward to how the other characters look like and act. I can look forward to how all the locations look like and how we can explore them. Other than that, it's nothing really to look forward to because, well, we could also still be playing the original game and it's everything the same. Maybe the experience will be a little bit different because, yeah, the additional banter, the additional dialogue, everything is a little bit deeper. You see more of the world. But for a remake of this magnitude, I think this would be a waste of resources. So by implementing a few more interesting beats, especially those which we fans can theorize about and talk about and look forward to, because now we don't really know what actually will happen. Of course,
exactly.
Kitase said the main story beats will still be the same, but how will they happen? Will stuff be a little bit different? Will Fort Condor still be there? Or will there be a Yuffie main scenario? Or will stuff play out differently? How will we get thrown into the jail underneath Gold Saucer, the desert jail with Dine? Is it still going to play out the same? Will it be different? What will we learn in Gungaga? Because they already revealed Zack. What will happen there?
Oh my god, yeah.
Are we gonna see new locations like the ruins of Panora or something like that? Or maybe go through Modeoheim and later when we're in near Icicle or something? I don't know. So many things can happen. And will Aerith meet her end at the same point in time? Will it be the same? Will it play out differently? Will it be a little bit later? Will it be maybe suddenly a little bit earlier just to shock us? I have no idea. Because all of those things will happen, kind of, sort of, but the details we have no idea. And this is what's really exciting and interesting.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, would those people, like, some of those people just not even exist? You know?
Yeah.
Like, is that a possibility? Because in this new timeline, like, the certain events didn't happen, so that person wasn't even born. Like, what? Anyways, sorry.
This is almost on level 4.
Yeah, remember? This is level 5 or 6 shit.
Yeah.
Max, dude, this is level 6. I gotta email Max, dude.
Yeah, do that.
Listen, I came up with some level 6 shit.
There are probably dozens of people who have already done.
None of them actually even exist because they weren't even born.
Well, you never know. But yeah, no, it's. I don't think it will be that drastic, but it's still really exciting what they will be doing with all of this. Also, with Sephiroth mocking around, maybe returning, like his future form kind of returning in some form, or his current form having more knowledge now. What will happen when Cloud falls into the live stream? Will there be more interactions with Sephiroth there? Well, I don't know. It's really really exciting. If I'd like stuck my head into my notes and write down for hours on end whatever comes to my mind, it would probably come up with so many interesting scenarios that could happen, but probably won't, because I don't know. We fans usually come up with so many cool stuff, and the developer are just usually straightforward. Usually, not always. But yeah, it's really exciting, and this is why I love their new direction. And many others do too, because it's not exactly the same. It's still exciting for new players.
They still achieved kind of what they did in the original, where
Yeah,
people
exactly.
talked about this game
Yeah.
so much.
Exactly.
And they've kind of done the same thing now, because we're going to be talking about all of the things that happened in this part of the game for a long time until the next one comes out, and then we'll be
Yep.
talking about it
Yep.
again, because
Yep.
there'll be part 2, and then we'll be talking about it again after part 2. So, like, it's just insane.
An endless cycle.
Yeah, it's so crazy, but I love it. And I'm super happy, like I said, to go, like, to be talking about this game and be in this world again and talk about these characters. And we'll be doing it for a long time into the future.
Yeah.
So I love it. Did you want to start talking about our theories now? We've kind of touched on it a little bit. It's been sprinkled in there
a little bit
throughout our conversation. So I'm going to go first. So I read some stuff on Twitter. I think it was somebody who lives in Japan, and they translated the Ultimania, and they posted it on Twitter.
Or at least parts of it, yeah.
Yeah, and they said that it actually said that there's 4 different Sephiroths that appear throughout the game.
It was a table somewhere on some pages that explain a few things, yeah.
I think so. So they just said, like, there's the OG Sephiroth, and there's, like, Sephiroth from a Shadow Sephiroth, and then there's, like, a flashback Sephiroth, and then there's a future Sephiroth, I think. Which makes sense. So the OG Sephiroth, a one that's seen in flashbacks, and then, I forget. I didn't type it out.
No worries, I have everything in my head for
do you know?
Doing so many notes and talking with people, yeah. There are 4. One is let's go through chronologically. We see Sephiroth first in Cloud's head, so the illusion, the illusory Sephiroth, which is his essence talking to him and projecting his image into Cloud's head. This is the first one.
Right.
The second one is the flashback. Like we see, like Cloud just has a memory of something Sephiroth said or did or something like that. There are a few, not too many. I think 3 instances. I might be wrong. And then there's Sephiroth using one of those numbered clones as a vessel to physically appear to people.
Right. Yeah.
That's the third one. And the fourth one is the one we see at the very end of the highway, where everyone can see him, and which slices the whispers to form a portal, and everything we see in the portal. That's the fourth, and this is a question mark. And without explaining much, it's the Whisper Sephiroth, so to speak. But more on that later, yeah. Because there's so much I need to reference and explain, and yeah.
Well, this person on Twitter then went through, they listed these 4 Sephiroths, and then they went through, like, beat by beat, like, the different scenes that we see Sephiroth throughout the game, and said, it's this, it's that. I don't agree with that person, because I went through and it didn't make any sense to me with what they were saying, and that's okay. But I didn't think that it played out the same way. Like, when we saw Sephiroth, like, throughout the game, they had listed, like, oh, flashback, and I was like, that wasn't a flashback Sephiroth that we saw. You know what I mean? Maybe it was, I don't know, but I don't think that it was, like, I didn't agree on the same order of which we see Sephiroth throughout the game.
Okay.
I do agree that there are 4 Sephiroths. That you just stated them, and I went to the live stream basically and read, like, after I read this person's Twitter post and was trying to figure out, like, what they were talking about and everything, and then I kind of made a decision on my own, and then I went to livestream.net. So shout out to livestream.net for translating these. It's different. It's the extra chapters that were released, right? For On the Way to a Smile, Livestream Black. Livestream, Black 1 and 2, and Livestream White 1 and 2.
And 3. There are three short parts, yeah. Each. It's okay.
I did not scroll down to the bottom of the page, Vyzz. I was in the process of scrolling, and I just saw 1 and 2, and then I got to the bottom, and you're like, "There's 3." I'm like, "Oh my god, dude, let me scroll. Let me scroll." Sorry, I forgot because I didn't go back and reread these.
Yeah.
Like, I read them a few times just to kind of understand what happened. Then we haven't talked about this game about a week now, so I kind of forgot. But so my theories are, like, I think that this is future Sephiroth coming back and changing the timeline, the Advent Children Sephiroth. And from reading the live stream, Black and White 1, 2, 3, it sounds like he was destroyed after the end of Advent Children, and he was in the live stream, but he's recreating himself again from Cloud's memories of him, and he does say something like that at the end of Advent Children, doesn't he? Where
maybe just a memory or something.
Yeah. He says, "I'll never just be a memory," and that's true, because as long as Cloud has him inside of his mind, I think that he can recreate himself. And I think that that's what he's done, because also we get a glimpse of live stream Aerith, who's in the live stream after she gets killed in the original timeline, and I think that she's there. She knows, because it says that she sees Sephiroth in the live stream, and she knows what he's been up to and what he's trying to do, right? And then it says in live stream Black 3, "With a fragment of Mother's body, I too can get a body again."
Yeah, that was the plan for Advent Children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what happens, because I know that these are the 3 characters in the Advent Children. It's not actually Sephiroth. It's Kadaj, Loz, and Yazoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Are clones of Sephiroth. Like, they're essentially him, but
yeah.
they're, because they have the DNA copied inside of them, but they're not actually Sephiroth, but they are.
Yeah, they're essences or past essences from the live stream.
Yes.
That bear hatred inside, which he kind of overtook, and with the black live stream or the tainted live stream, he projected them onto the surface to have a physical body on there.
Exactly.
And Kadaj only was 2 weak, so he created 2 more, and then he had the 3 do the thing.
Separate entities.
Search Genova, or the remnants of Genova, so that he can recreate himself with the Genova cells, which happened at the end. But then he got killed by Cloud again.
Yes.
And
which kind of brings me to... Oh, sorry.
No worries. Just keep talking. You're probably saying the same thing, maybe.
Well, that brings me to my next point, though, which is, in some way, he's recreated himself again, though, after Advent Children, and he's come back through the original timeline, trying to change it for some reason. And we don't know, but at the end of the game, he kind of gives us a clue, though, because doesn't he say that he needs Cloud for something?
Yeah, he wants to challenge fate together, or challenge destiny together with, or defy destiny together with him.
I think that something has happened in the future, though, that maybe, like, Cloud's dead, but he needs Cloud for something, and he needs him alive. So I'm not sure why he was going back trying to change the timeline so that Aerith and Cloud don't meet, and then like other things happen that kind of spirals into other things happening and not happening, to the point where he is able to, I guess, keep him alive so that he can use him for something. I don't know. Anyway, that was my understanding of kind of what happened at the end of this game and why he's motivated into going back throughout the timeline to kind of change history and change these different events, from certain things from happening and certain things actually happening. There's one point in the live stream chapters that I read as well, that where it's Aerith talking about how she too feels like she could do the same and recreate herself as well. But it says that she needs the power of Jenova, and then I forget what else it says about her. It says like she doesn't want to do that or something like that.
Yeah, she wants to appear to Cloud as herself, as someone he trusts.
Oh, yes.
Not just use a vessel for something. Yeah, that's why she only appears to him in thought or in dreams or something. In Advent Children, I forget what it was. Just in his thoughts as herself.
In his thoughts.
Yeah, not just as using an avatar of sorts.
Exactly. I think that Aerith knows, though, what happened and what's going to happen.
Yes, she
in
does.
the remake. I think she does. I think that when she's seen in the alley and it's like she's kind of meditating with the pipes and the live streams coming off of it. She's kind of there, and I think that she might have received some information then. And she definitely knows when Sephiroth touches her, for sure.
Well, I think this is just in Cloud's mind there. She doesn't really, maybe she feels that something is off there with Cloud and maybe felt Sephiroth's presence. But this actual scene is only seen by Cloud and when he meets Aerith. So it's not actually him touching her per se. It's more like Sephiroth appears, touches her to kind of make him the focal point of Cloud and not Aerith, because she freezes in Cloud's eyes. And then tells him you can save anyone and whatever. I don't recall verbatim what he says there.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I just felt like, to me, I think that she knows more than what she's telling us at that point. I don't know why. Like, I thought that. I thought that because he touches her and then she has an expression where it looks like she's getting all this like information, basically. Like she's kind of like, maybe she's got a glimpse of something, you know what I mean? Where she's knows that obviously like she ends up dying, and then it's like her soul in the live stream trying to communicate with her in this timeline, because now the timeline has changed.
Do you have some other points you want to touch on? Because as soon as I start talking, I will be on a roll.
Yeah. Somebody suggested that there's multiple Aeriths as well. I'm not sure that I'm sold on that theory, but I think that she definitely has a connection with her soul in the live stream from the original timeline throughout this game. And I think that she knows more than what she's leading on, like I said. And I think that becomes more evident to you as a player when you're experiencing the game during your playthrough, and she's giving you hints throughout the game.
There are a few scenes that are pretty overt that she knows stuff that she shouldn't.
Yeah. And then by the end, it's kind of like, okay, she definitely knows what we need to do, you know, and that's why she's asking us to step into the singularity and do this, because she knows that we have to, without actually blatantly just coming out and saying it. But she's pretty forward by the end of the game with everybody.
Well, by that point, it doesn't really matter anymore, because the Wisps are enveloping Midgar anyway, and the timeline and everything is mucked up so much that, well, let's just go all in now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, okay, so talking about Sephiroth again, so we talked about him a little bit. I think that the Sephiroth that we're seeing kill President Shinra at that part and like jump off the roof, basically, and break in and steal the Jenova, I think that's the original. It's the clone of Sephiroth. It's Sephiroth being projected on the clone of the original game. I don't think that's the future Sephiroth that's going back. I don't know. If Sephiroth needs Jenova from the future again, then maybe it's him from the future that's stealing the Jenova out of the Hojo's container lab thing. I don't know what you think about this.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that, but yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that is the original Sephiroth, who's in the Northern Crater but is projecting himself through the clones. And obviously at the end, when we destroy the Arbiters of Fate and everything happens and we see the Whispers in the another timeline where, you know, and everything, they kind of explode, and then we see like the sparkles coming down and it's Zack. We see Zack and he's alive and all that stuff. I think that's a different timeline where the events are now changed because Zack, you know, ends up dying and now he's alive, and it shows, and Cloud, it's a different Cloud. I think that the scenes that we see after that, I think are I'm not sure. I still feel I felt like when I just rewatched the ending to the game that what we are seeing is that still that timeline. I'm not sure. Where we see Biggs in bed and he wakes up and we see Jesse's glove, because I don't know, the little particle bright things are still falling, but it could be still in that timeline as well, because the Whispers are appearing through all timelines at that point. So it could be the actual timeline of everything that just happened that we just experienced, but it's just showing that because of that, now Biggs is alive, potentially Jesse, but like you said, chapter select says that Jesse's actually dead. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's chapter select. It's the description of the events when you're within the chapter and going through all the points, the milestones within this chapter. Each one has a description, like what's happened and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I myself haven't gone back to that yet, but I've heard so many times that with Biggs it said he's injured or severely injured or something like that. With Jesse, it says Jesse has fallen at the pillar or something like that. And with Wedge, we never see what actually happens. We hear the glass shatter. We see the Whispers pulling him out of the room. But it's always like that in fiction. If you don't see a body, don't trust that someone's dead.
Right?
Because such scenes are...
It's so ridiculous, but it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
No, the thing is, why would you make it so vague if you're just going to kill off the character anyway? Because it's I don't. But think even then,
they still showed Barrett get stabbed and die.
Yeah,
you know. But then they show that he's alive.
Yeah. Well, they showed the Whispers pulling him back to life by using live stream essence. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I have more things to talk about as well, but I think it's more predictions about where they're going to take this story.
Which we should talk later, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk after. But anyway, reading all this stuff, like you said, I definitely think that this is definitely future Sephiroth. For some reason, needs to come back, and for something, he's coming back for something. I don't know what it is. Maybe you have kind of figured it out, his motivations, but
I hope
to me, they feel, to me though, it feels intentionally vague.
For sure, yeah.
And so
many things are extremely vague and bank on your knowledge of the previous game and as a children movie and ancillary works, novels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the compilation games.
Yeah,
and that's the thing too. So I can understand why people didn't like this as well, because if you didn't play the compilation games and you don't have like a full understanding of everything, I can see why. I can see why those people who only played the original would not like this ending.
Kind of the same in certain Kingdom Hearts games. If you play
Hmm.
certain games without having
Yeah.
played or watched cutscenes of other ones, you're lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
It's
I just wanted to add that because I can see
sure.
why, because
Yeah.
they did really incorporate those other
Mhm.
compilation games and Advent Children into this game for
Yeah.
sure.
I really need to watch a whole playthrough of someone who has never even touched the original game and compilation. I think there's one someone suggested to me.
Sorry, I listened to IGN podcast and
Ah,
somebody on there did not
I
listen
see.
or play like nothing, only just played the original and
Okay.
loved the original. And that person did not like the ending to this game.
Okay, I see.
They thought that it was like ridiculous and it was just didn't do it for them, basically.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. They kind of count on our broad knowledge of the whole
Hmm.
compilation. If you only played the original game, you're maybe like in this case, this person didn't like it, understandably so, because there's so many aspects that are just flying over your head if you don't know
Hmm.
those things, especially if you haven't
And
watched
some
Advent Children.
people watched it and played those games but didn't like them and thought it was bad.
Or
So
that,
then
yeah.
those people too were kind of like pissed because they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh God, here we go!" Like adding all the ridiculous things from Advent
Mhm.
Children, and then so because it was an okay movie, you know, but this is just my opinion. It wasn't like incredible. It was good.
It was a
It
great
was
action movie.
yes,
That's for
yes,
sure. But
yes, yes, but just the story was kind of like
yeah,
not
fell a little bit
sure.
flat in most instances.
And kind
Yeah.
of the same thing that happened with this game. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Like at the end of, I kind of did, but I didn't know who those three, like Kadaj and Lowe's
Mhm.
and Yazoo were. Like I didn't get it. I was like, oh, like I had to research it at the time.
If you only watch the movie, you might guess maybe, but it's yeah, you need additional information for that
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I
for
have a
sure.
better understanding now though because I've watched everything and played everything in succession, so it's
Mm,
fresh in my mind. Like I
true.
watched Advent Children, like I hadn't played the original game in so long, and then I also didn't play Crisis Core for so long, and I didn't
Mhm.
play Before Crisis because it wasn't released. So I
Yeah.
never played that, and I never read the books. Like I didn't know. So anyway. But yeah, anyway, so let's get into your theories, Viz, because I can't wait to hear everything that you're thinking about this, because I'm sure that you've looked at every single thing with
I
your
tried, yeah.
magnifying glass
Yeah.
and your very slow frame by frame analysis
Mhm.
glasses that you've got put on. Can't
Well,
wait.
the slow frame by frame doesn't really do much in this case, but yeah, I'll try to remember all the things I've come up so far and were able to distill. But I'll still try to keep it short because we don't want to become or get to 4 or 5 hours or something. It
I
would be
mean, we
ridiculous.
both do,
Yeah,
but the
sure, but
listeners
nah.
might not.
At some point, you'll probably just screw it. Nah. I'll try to keep it brief. Not really a TLDR because it wouldn't do it justice, but yeah. So I think I need to preface that we have a few, let's say, entities we need to go through. We have Sephiroth, that's a big part. We have Aerith, that's a separate thing that needs to be talked about. We have all those memory glitches, I call them, from Cloud, which are also very important. We have the Whispers as another entity,
Hmm.
and then everything that happens in the ending, because that's a whole other beast. Like after you beat Sephiroth for real. Now it's yeah. Let's start here with what we've already touched on, like Sephiroth going back in time. I
Yeah.
think it's not really going back in time per se, because well, the Whispers, as we learned from the game, are omnipresent. like they don't really exist in time and space as humans do, or as other life does.
Yeah.
They're like detached from life and from time and space. And I have a feeling that Sephiroth managed to kind of hijack them to be able to appear or like phone call Cloud's head in the past. And with having this connection to Cloud, which he already established pre-Advent Children, to even be able to do what he did in Advent Children with the Geostigma and everything like that, he forces Cloud to remember, he makes Cloud see him, and the more Cloud remembers, the more he can manifest himself in this world, so to speak.
Okay.
And have his influence in there. And Cloud, when he's close to the clones, I think it's the Genoa cells reacting, because every time, like not the first time really, but the first time he activated Marco, like the first time he even went there and went to sleep, Marco was nearby and kind of got activated, made those noises. Cloud went over there and then saw Sephiroth. I'm not 100% sure if this is actually Sephiroth's will projecting himself there, or if it's kind of the Genoa cell stuff. Because Cloud remembers Sephiroth and thinks Sephiroth is there, and it is always about the reunion. Both times when he touches Marco, when he touches number 2, both times it's about the reunion. Like the first time, I don't think Sephiroth said anything. It was just a flash forward to the reunion, the actual reunion in the Northern Crater. And the second time with Aerith in Sector 5 was Sephiroth saying, the reunion is nothing to be feared, or something like that. And I'm pretty sure this is not actual Sephiroth's will, but it's the Genoa cell like initiating the reunion. Because it's very, very subtle, but when Cloud is being touched by number 2, and then number 2 gets up and starts walking, Cloud also gets this weird expression, starts one step in this like swaying way, as if he was, okay, reunion, like a zombie, but then Aerith instantly touches his hand there. So, like, brings him out of his delirium. It's very subtle. It's much more visible when they're close to Genova in the Shinra HQ. Like when he's walking, we actually have to steer him towards the elevator, where he has more Sephiroth flashbacks, what he says, and visions of Genova, and I think it's the same walk, the same kind of reunion walk, just more pronounced there in Shinra HQ. So anyway, back to Sephiroth. Was a little bit of a tangent there, but Sephiroth tries to like get Cloud to remember. It was the first time there. Then when he met Aerith, because Aerith dies and Cloud failed to save her. So Sephiroth wants Cloud to feel despair, and what's better than just make him feel, yes, you failed. You can't save everyone, or you can't save anyone. This is important. Also in the alleyway when Sephiroth disappears, he says, how are his words? Keep remembering this hatred, or something along those lines. Sephiroth needs Cloud to remember him and needs to feel or remember the hatred he has for him, because hatred is a strong emotion, and that's increasing the tether.
Hold on to that hatred.
Exactly.
Or something.
Hold on to that hatred. Exactly. And I think in the German and the Japanese version, he says something about "Don't forget about me" or something like that. It's more about memory and less about hatred. But even in the original script, when they're in the Northern Crater, Cloud says or tells kind of the player or himself that it was all about him, his hatred for Sephiroth brought him here. It was kind of his fault. His hatred of Sephiroth kept him alive and kept him chasing Sephiroth at this point, and now he failed or something. I don't remember the exact wording, but it's also about the hatred he has for Sephiroth, which is what empowers Sephiroth.
Yeah.
To make Cloud do what he wants, like steer him like a puppet, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is at the start, there are several instances where Sephiroth swoops in and hijacks Cloud's mind when Cloud has a flashback or kind of something triggers memory. In Sector 8, it was the burning buildings, where he was reminded of the burning Nibelheim, which prompted or which enabled Sephiroth to connect and hijack this kind of weakness of Cloud to insert himself into his mind and start manipulating him. It's also the same when he falls down to Sector 5 after the Airbuster fight, where Cloud's past self reminds him of, well, this at that time we only got away with scraped knees. Are you okay? Can you stand up and stuff? And then this is not in the original because, well, it's now a different timeline. Sephiroth appears again and tells him that he's Cloud's master, and there's so much to be done. So you notice there he's the puppet master of Cloud again. Just much earlier. And
okay, so which Sephiroth is that that's appearing to him? Who says that?
That's the Advent Children version of Sephiroth connecting to Cloud. Yeah. This happens so many times. The last time is at the very end of the last bike chase minigame when Cloud sees Sephiroth at the end, but then he disappears again. This is the last illusion Cloud has. After that, there are no illusions anymore. From top of my head, I can't remember other instances, but there are surely more, like pure illusions. I think the last illusion before he appears physically is in this VR presentation in the Cosmos Theater in Shinra HQ, where after the presentation, it kind of glitches out and then shows everyone, also all, Cloud, Tifa, and Barret, the meteor fall, how it happens, how everyone is scared and runs away, and all those fire hoses and meteor destroying a Shinra building. They see that, but they don't see Sephiroth, because if they did, they would react differently. So Sephiroth only appears to Cloud there, and this prompts Cloud to say Sephiroth's name, like in a... He kind of realizes, yes, Sephiroth is here now. And the scene right after is about Palmer lamenting about having forgotten or not having enough lard or butter for his tea. Yeah. And then he drops the tea because he sees Sephiroth. This is the last thing Sephiroth needed to have been remembered enough. And since number 2 was number 49 was also already there, he could hijack number 49's body to appear in front of everyone. And he needed Palmer to see him, because then Palmer tells everyone else in the meeting that he's there. Then they all think about Sephiroth, talk about Sephiroth. There are more memories going around, more memories that empower him, that make him stronger. It's all planned, like, completely. Maybe plan A, B, C, D, E, but that's the plan.
So is that an illusion of Sephiroth that's appearing to Palmer?
Nope. That's actually the physical number, the number 49 clone that just looks like Sephiroth. Whether that is...
Yeah, okay, so it's a projection.
Yeah, it's I'm not quite sure, because Genova is said to be able to project stuff into the minds of others, but also shapeshift. So I'm not quite sure if it's just a projection to everyone around, or if did the clone actually transformed or got transformed due to the Genova cells, but I more think it's like a projection and less of an actual transformation because of the effect.
But is it the original Sephiroth that's in the northern crater that's projecting on that clone?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Because by that time, he's not really too conscious yet, because as I understand from the original game, like the proximity to Cloud, or from Cloud to Genova, that's where, or that's the time when Genova kind of started activating, and then when they were caught and shoved into prison, Genova broke out. But I think Sephiroth didn't really have this 100% control yet, but still had some influence, because why else would Genova's body go over to Cloud's cell and open it? Wouldn't make sense, because Genova or Genovaroth needs Cloud to follow it and complete the reunion. So in the original, it's actually the body of Genova who broke out of the containment cell, but also looked like Sephiroth, because it was Sephiroth from the Northern Crater steering her, but probably not 100% accurately. Because when we see him first in the cargo ship, he doesn't, or Genovaroth doesn't really recognize Cloud yet. Like it's kind of a mixture between instinctual and some memories and the will of Sephiroth. It's only afterwards, I think, that it really starts to like, how should I phrase this? Where Sephiroth from the Northern Crater can 100% take over Genova's body and then mess around with Cloud. Because why else would he ask Cloud, "Who are you?" in the cargo ship? So in the original, it was Genova's body breaking out, killing everyone on its way out, killing President Shinra, leaving the sword there for Cloud to see. So it
was Genova, but it was actually projecting as Sephiroth, so people saw Genova as Sephiroth.
Palmer saw Sephiroth there too, in the office of President Shinra in the original. That's
okay, and you don't think that that's what's happening here?
No, because Genova is still in her containment. Even when they reach the containment in the drum, Sephiroth appears in front of everyone, and Genova's still there. But we saw him already walking in front of Palmer, and the hint was already there in the pre-rendered scene where Cloud sees clone number 2 glitching in and out, and then becoming Sephiroth. So this is kind of foreshadowing of, hey, I'm going to pose as one of those clones later, which is what he did. I'm not 100% sure when exactly it's number 2 and when it's 49, but as far as I understand, it's number 49, or Marco, if you will, when Palmer sees him in front of Genova, and the one that's carrying Genova away, because there's one scene where Hojo watches a monitor and sees Sephiroth walking away with Genova in his hands, like at the top of the drum. But what's interesting then later is when we see Sephiroth in President Shinra's office, I think it is. Yeah, it's his office when he kills President Shinra, then Barrett gets resurrected, and then there's the battle. No, I think the battle happens before. During the battle, Barrett gets resurrected. I think it's this chain of events. I kind of forgot it, but anyway, we see a Sephiroth. We see Sephiroth transforming, or kind of not really transforming, but projecting Genova on top of it, or kind of changing. And then we fight Genova with also the projected Genova hive of sorts all around the place instead of the office. And if you go to the border of the area, you see the same green bottomless pit with the square pillar that are also there in the original, in the center of the planet where you fight Genova synthesis. So there's that parallel. And when we defeat Genova, see that Genova disappears into number 49, which then falls down dead probably. And Genova's original body then appears next to it, as if it's been like hidden from view. So it was actually number 49 posing as Genova, which we had to defeat. And then number 2, posing as Sephiroth, picks up the Genova body, gets out, floats up to the top. Cloud goes after him. The Whispers, of course, keep him away. And then Sephiroth disappears again. And then we see he was posing as number 2, which then jumps down with Genova's body in his hands all the way down to the bottom. And I have thought about this a few times. At first I thought, yeah, maybe number 49 was possessed by the original Sephiroth, like the one that's sitting in Northern Crater.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think so, because the one in Northern Crater took over Genova's body, which never happens here. So I think number 2 and number 49 are just 2, like plan A and plan B. So he could, like, one of those was disposable for the Genova fight, and then the other one was to bring Genova's body, quote unquote, to safety. It's not quite clear, but I think afterwards, when Genova plunges to the bottom, number 2 is just jelly down there, of course, most likely. But then Genova's body is, well, it's Genova. Even if she shatters, she will just reform anyway. And I think that's the point when the Sephiroth in the Northern Crater starts taking over and starts the journey from there all the way through the whole world to Northern Crater and having Cloud chase after him. That's what I think. Because that needs to happen. That's probably also why the Whispers followed them, to make sure that Sephiroth can then take over the body and go, or just make sure that this happens, because sometimes they don't interfere, they're just floating around and making sure that stuff happens, and if something deviates, then they interfere, which doesn't really happen much at the end here at the top of the Shinra Tower, because they're mostly just swirling around and not doing anything. Besides stopping Cloud from interfering with number 2 jumping off the roof, because this needs to happen. I know it's a mouthful, but
Okay, so I'm sitting here and I'm like trying to wrap my brain around all that. Like, I'm literally like, holy shit. Like, yeah. There's so much stuff that I did not realize was happening. And I can understand how people are lost, man. Mm-hmm. Like, you're explaining to me, I'm like, okay. Like, inside of my mind, I'm like, okay, wait. I do agree with you. Actually, it makes a lot more sense now. So thank you so much for clarifying that for me. Because I was really confused, because I didn't know if what we were seeing was the original Sephiroth being projected. Well, if it was Genova who's broken out but appears as Sephiroth who's doing all of those things, because in the original, like you said, we see that, and then that's who kills President Shinra, right?
Mm-hmm. But here it's different.
Here it's different. Yeah, exactly. Because because the Advent Children Sephiroth knows that obviously that's what's going to happen. So he has to kind of go in and start the whole process earlier so he can kind of change things, I guess, for some reason. Like, I don't know. Exactly. We don't know why.
I'll get to that.
And that's why, like you said, at the end, like they jump, like Genova jumps off. and it shows that it's a clone. But like you said, it can just reform into cells, and then the events of the original start happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the clone number 2 with that holds the body of Jenova, just that jumps off.
Yes.
So yeah.
So the clone probably dies, but then
probably
the clones have Jenova cells in them.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure maybe like the clone dies, but then Jenova just absorbs it or something like into itself, and then goes to like the events of the original game happen after that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the clones are extremely disposable anyway. You see that in the Northern Crater, where all those remaining clones start or are walking all along the narrow path, and some of them just jump off or fall off, and Sephiroth kills some of them and throws them off because they're not quite needed anymore and stuff. It's it's a mess. It's messed up. But yeah, that's at least until then. And afterwards, at the end of the highway, where we meet Sephiroth again, and everyone can still see Sephiroth again, but it's not a clone because both clones are dead. There are no clones, but still everyone sees him. And at that point, it's Sephiroth which has kind of started having a lot of influence over the Whispers, and is probably projecting himself using the Whispers to appear in front of everyone. And then this is also why he can just slice a portal in that, because, well, if he's made out of Whisper energy, it makes just sense. Otherwise, it will be weird. There are other instances where you could argue that he's already kind of in power, or is at least able to use the Whispers to do stuff. For example, when after the mission with Jesse and co, he falls asleep, and then a few Whispers appear. One of them goes in Cloud's face and then says, "Sleep, have the deepest dreams," or something along those lines. And it kind of sounds like Sephiroth's voice there, which I think is twofold. The Whispers are there to make sure Jesse gets hurt, so that Cloud needs to jump in, so he has to go on the mission. Sephiroth wants, well, it's hard to say what he actually wants. He probably wants the opposite, so he uses one of the Whispers to make Cloud fall asleep, so he sleeps through everything and might not even be able to go on the mission because the other ones go without him. However, Tifa, he noticed when he wakes up, he kind of already hears Tifa approaching. Tifa comes in, "Cloud, we need you," and then they still manage to get there in time just to see Jesse hurt, and then Barrett decides to, "Okay, Cloud, you're coming with us now." Because you notice a few times Sephiroth wants the events to happen differently. Because the thing is also that why Cloud is so strong is mostly because of his friends. Most of those can avert stuff that happens because of Sephiroth's influence over Cloud. For example, in the original game, in Temple of the Ancients, where he starts pummeling Aerith or something like that, one of his friends, whether it's Tifa or Yuffie or whoever you have in your team, smacks him, and he goes into, not a coma, just unconscious. Then they also stop him from slicing Aerith in half in the Forgotten Capital, which then Sephiroth has to step in and kill Aerith himself. So and also Tifa manages to bring his old self back to normal, like make him remember all the things from the past that he kind of forgot or had to suppress because of Mako and Genova influences. So in the end, I think that Sephiroth tries to get Cloud away from everyone else in some fashion, so that Cloud is kind of alone and more manipulatable. Yeah, that's one thing, but I think Sephiroth has so many different plans, and if this plan fails, he can do this, and if this fails, he can do that. kind of like Xehanort in the Kingdom Hearts series. He has so many backup plans of backup plans of backup plans. Like, yeah, it's kind of a little parallel there. Anyway, even at the end of the highway, Sephiroth tells Cloud to join him.
Mm-hmm.
But then Aerith holds him back, his whole speech, blah, 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 and then changes the portal, whether to make the portal safe for everyone to go in, or as I think it was Final Fantasy Peasant who theorized that she, I'll come to that later, she also has new powers in this game now, in this timeline, due to circumstances, that she makes sure that when all characters enter the portal, that they have like the knowledge and the abilities of all of their selves, like Advent Children, Dirty Cerberus, Original, all combined. That's why they are so strong, can slice buildings, flip around, can fight against the Whispers and against the reincarnation of Sephiroth. I think both work. Because it's a singularity, and the singularity is what? Everything congregated, or everything like compressed into one. That's also why when they're there, it's like the Whispers are all-encompassing, free from time and space. And when Cloud and friends are there, also all of their essences from all the time and space are kind of compressed into one. That's why they're so strong there. Those two possibilities. I lean more towards that Aerith just made the portal safe for everyone, not to get lost. And then in the singularity, because of the nature of the singularity, they have all the power, which of course dissipates again when they're outside, because then they're just their normal selves again. But back to this Whisper Sephiroth. I said that he's projecting himself using the Whispers at the end of the highway. And when we're inside, we don't see Sephiroth anymore for a while, but we see this huge Whisper, which some theorize it's another weapon of the planets. I say, yeah, in sort of. The Whispers are a product of the planet, but this is kind of the last defense, like the core of the Whisper essence, so to speak, which tries to maintain destiny, which is why we have to get rid of it. However, I think Sephiroth is in the core of this Whisper. He doesn't have the whole control yet, but still enough control so that the three small Whispers that appear are projections of Kadaj, Yazoo, and Laws. Which makes sense, because the description, when you assess them, says they're entities from future timelines that try to maintain history or something. And the only thing that's different between those is the weapon. One uses a glove, one uses two guns, and one uses a sword. Could be argued, well, it's Baratif and Cloud, obviously, but no, it's not. The one who has a glove has just one glove and not two. And also, not really a glove, it's more like a contraption on his hand, like Laws has. He has some sort of gadget there. It's not just a glove. And the one with the guns has two guns, which Yazoo has two guns, Barrett has just one. So those are the Advent Children. And what's interesting is also the track that plays there is called Arbiters of Fate Advent. So it's so interesting that the music is sometimes spoilery or gives stuff away. I'll get to that later too. And the names of the music give stuff away, and how the music is composed even sometimes. It's very interesting. Anyway, that is still Sephiroth pulling the strings of sorts, but not completely. And then when we defeat them, also another hint against for those being the Advent Children, they reform into Bahamut, which then, when they defeat Bahamut, we have to then fight against the three individual Whispers again, which is kind of what happens in Advent Children too. Kadaj summons Bahamut, and when Bahamut is defeated, we have to defeat the other ones again. So yeah, another parallel. And then when we defeat all the Whispers and the Harbinger as well, everyone's like in this beautiful place, which is only comprised of heaven or clouds and water, which then transforms back into meteor approaching. And then you see Sephiroth within this purple glow, kind of chained to all those threads of fate. However, he then absorbs all of the essence. We see Whispers are all, like everything that's projected there, it's made of Whispers, even the meteor, and he absorbs all of them. And that was his plan all along, that he wants to like take over the essence of the Whispers completely, then fight against Cloud and the others, get defeated, and then in turn defeat Destiny. That's my take on it anyway, because in the end, when you defeat Sephiroth and then the cutscene happens, he does send a few stragglers, Whispers, against the party. They fight back, then Cloud takes the opportunity and jump against Sephiroth, pulls the Braver, but Sephiroth just smiles at him, doesn't move an inch, doesn't do anything, and lets himself hit. And what happens then? He beats Sephiroth, or hits Sephiroth, the Whispers kind of swirl around, and then congregate again in the middle, and then explode all over the place. And that's when Sephiroth can pull Cloud through this wormhole, like he did in the original, and have this chat with him there in the end of the world, or the edge of creation, however we want to call it. And I'm not 100% sure what actually happens there. Pretty sure it's meant to be vague, but I'm pretty sure that Sephiroth pulls Cloud into the live stream, like the knowledge of the planet, and shows like the very end of the life cycle of the planet, like at the very end when the planet is no more. And the nebula on the heavens, or it's not really a heaven, but
yeah.
Like
I thought that he brought him back to the beginning of creation. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's the edge of creation.
Yeah, like, the edge of creation.
Yeah, but in I think Japanese and also German, it says the end of the world. Okay. It's actually the end of the world where the planet is no more. And the nebula usually happens, well, I looked it up, but it was a little bit confusing. The nebula can happen when the sun like nears the end of its lifetime, and like sprouts at all the essence that
it turns into like a red dwarf or whatever.
Red giant and then a white dwarf.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry.
So like dissipates, and in doing so, probably the surrounding planets are disintegrated as well. And this is like the dust that is emanated by that can be visible from far away. It's also how we see certain parts of galaxies and stuff. I'm not quite knowledgeable. I read this article on Wikipedia, but it was a little bit confusing and too short, but I didn't really have the time to keep researching. Anyway, this nebula could just represent like sun's dead, planet's dead, it's the end. And we're just sitting there on a rock inside of the universe and looking at the end of the world. That's my interpretation anyway. And what's very, very interesting is in other languages we have no idea, we're none the wiser, but in the Japanese script he uses a different pronoun in this scene. Pronouns are very important. Like there are many different ways you can say I. Like in this case, he uses ore, which is like just a normal, like casual way of referring to oneself, usually males. And it's not really polite, it's just casual. But then there's a polite version, the normal polite version, which is watashi, which he always uses like after from when the Nibelheim incident all the way through the original game, when he's kind of possessed by Jenova, or where it's kind of Jenova and Sephiroth merged into one being, so to speak. Then he always uses Watashi. He used Ore all the way before he went mad.
Yeah, I remember reading this online.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and that's kind of a return to his former self. But what I think is happening there, which also has a few hints throughout the game, that he at that point is free of Genova yet again. Like Genova is no more, and like when the planet dies, and Genova can't escape again with the planet as a shell, which was Genova's original plan. Just go into the planet, absorb all life, use the planet as a shell to travel to the next planet, and then absorb all the essence again, and do this over and over and over again like a parasite. I think this is the Sephiroth that is free, or the will of, or like the last remnant of the Sephiroth that is free of the Genova influence, which is back again. But he still failed because the planet is dead. Now, what I kind of think is happening there, what he wants, is basically the same. Like, he doesn't want to die. That's one thing. He doesn't want to die. And one thing is, Cloud needs to be alive. If Cloud dies, his tether to the world dies, and he will eventually dissipate into the live stream because he doesn't have a tether anymore. That's how I understand it, as far as live stream Black goes and stuff that we know. Because there he it's described as he needed an anchor, or a soul or a spirit core of sorts where he can attach to, so that he can be remembered and not die, so to speak, or not just fade away into the live stream. That's one. He also says this in this Edge of Creation part. He doesn't want to die, he doesn't want Cloud to die, but the world will eventually be part of this unknown future. So what I think is he wants to kind of do the same as Genova did, or planned to, but differently, like absorb the live stream, but then use the live stream to survive. Even if the planet at some point dies, because all planets have to die at some point, like physically. You might remember that in Dirge of Cerberus there was this whole Omega weapon thing. Omega weapon was this last resort of the planet when everything goes to crap. Omega weapon absorbs all the live stream and goes to a different planet so that if the planet dies, the live stream and all this knowledge and memories are preserved and continue on a different planet. I think this might be Sephiroth's new plan, the only way he can survive, and he needs Cloud for that. Otherwise, it wouldn't work because the tether is gone. That's my interpretation. Still a little bit wonky. I'm not 100% okay with this, but I think this could be where it's going. This is also why he also wants to get rid of Genova so he can be himself again, not die, survive, and even survive the death of the planet. And about Genova, and that he's not like tainted by Genova anymore and wants to get rid of it. I said before that after we defeat the Harbinger, the big Whisper, you see him in a purple light for a short time and chained. This kind of says to me he's not just chained to fate, but his fate is intricately tied to Genova too. Like his fate is to fall into madness and then be one with Genova in the end, or with her essence. And Genova's the purple goo. It's the Trail of Blood is now purple goo, but it's purplish, bluish. Genova's representation is also kind of purplish, bluish, more blue than purple, but still. The mysterious spectre, when we fight the Whispers, there's also always one mysterious spectre that we have to defeat. We have to slay other ones, so that the purple or the mysterious Whisper, or no, enigmatic Whisper becomes vulnerable. And this part is also purplish. And I think there are a few more. Hang on, I have a few notes here. All right, when number 49 transforms, quote unquote, into Genova Dreamweaver, or Genova Pulse, as it's called in different languages, there's also this purple effect. And when we defeat him, I think it's also this purple particle effect that swirls around or dissipates when number 49 is defeated and dies. There's like the color purple is many times associated to Genova. So that's also why I think he's chained to the fate, which encompasses also Genova, and he wants to be free of that. Not just fate that he can win in the end, but also be free of Genova and just be himself and not die and prevail, so to speak. And one reason why he wants to go back and change stuff is not just that, but also he lost to Cloud 5 years ago. He lost to Cloud at the end of the original. He lost to Cloud at the end of Advent Children. He's just sick of having to lose again and again, being tied to Genova and everything. So he needs to go back and change stuff so that he is finally able to win, kind of, against Cloud. But he doesn't want Cloud to die. Like, he doesn't want to win against Cloud by killing him, because it would undo everything he's worked for, because he needs Cloud as the tether, as we established before. Which is also why he wants Cloud to help him defy destiny. And then Cloud says, no, never. And you do see that Sephiroth is kind of bummed out a little. So, yeah, he needs this to happen. And Final Fantasy Peasant also had nice ideas, and I kind of want to build up on those. I also had this idea that Cloud eventually, like, imagine you lose against someone, like you're kind of destined to lose against someone. And if you can't do that, if you can't win, what do you do? Like, erase this whole factor out of the whole equation. So Sephiroth needs to have a vessel anyway, a physical vessel to contain the live stream, which in the original game he started to reform himself in this live stream, crystallized live stream, where we only saw the upper body, the legs weren't ready yet, which is also why he's incomplete in the end when we fight against him. He has the wings instead of the legs.
Right.
He needs a physical body, and Cloud is strong. He has Mako Infusion, he survived, he always prevailed against Sephiroth, so why not try to prime Cloud to be his vessel? Like that Cloud is actually then possessed by Sephiroth or one with Sephiroth in the end, so he can then exist in the real world and possibly also absorb all the live stream and then go to another planet and prevail live on even if the planet dies. I know it's a real mouthful, and the more I talk about it, the more insane I think I sound, but
I don't think so. It just sounds something that he would do. I think that then he can forge his own
destiny
and create, like, start his own beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
Of everything. But
of everything.
He is free of everything, like free of Genova and free of being defeated and free of everything. And he becomes God, essentially, because he absorbs.
He already wanted to become a god in the original game, partially maybe because of Genova. Genova had a similar thing, but only like parasitic in nature. But Sephiroth wanted to become a god, and now he can become a god without having to rely on Genova and without being tainted by Genova's instincts.
Exactly.
Like on
and
his
he knows
terms.
that, though.
Yeah,
he's
and
figured that out. Because before he thought that he's so fixated on Genova, right? And it's mother and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's only going to get you so far. And I think, like you said, he's kind of realized that he doesn't need Genova, and actually he needs to get rid of Genova to finally become a god and kind of
a
forge
real
the future
god
that he wants.
Yeah.
And probably, like you said, needs to use Cloud as a vessel, but he definitely needs Cloud to be alive because
Yeah,
without Cloud,
definitely.
he won't exist anymore, basically.
But he needs Cloud to be on his side because otherwise he will just be defeated by Cloud again and again. Maybe. Depends. That's also why I think he needs Cloud to get away or move away from his friends, because his friends are my friends are my power. I know, Kingdom Hearts moment, but it's kind of goes into that direction, because if you have really good friends, they take care of you. They stop you when you do stupid things, and he doesn't really want that. Which I think we talked about that with luring Cloud into this alleyway in Chapter 1 in Sector 8, and Chapter 2, sorry, Sector 8. His speech was so long and wordy and weird and slow, and if you think about it, he just wanted to stall Cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
That's also what Maximilian Du talked about. I first thought was a little bit weird. I do think he wanted to do that to and hope that he never meets Aerith.
Exactly.
However, Aerith had different plans. That's what I wanted to talk about next after I'm done here. I think I'm pretty much through with Sephiroth. This is a pretty good segue to Aerith. The interesting thing is, when we meet Aerith, she's also bothered and harassed by the Whispers. It doesn't really seem like they want to just keep her in place there, keep her from leaving, which kind of has to happen anyway, because she needs to be there when Cloud arrives, even if he's late. However, with the premise that Aerith knows more than she should, she knows that she needs to meet Cloud there anyway, so she would have waited for him anyway. But Sephiroth doesn't know that yet. So my impression is that, well, let's start from the beginning with Aerith. I think it's easier. As we've talked about before with about livestream White, which talks about how Aerith is experiencing the live stream and how she learns about Sephiroth's plans and tries to move against it, or was hesitant to create an avatar of herself to fight against Sephiroth, but then decided to appear as herself in front of Cloud's mind. And then also use the live stream to cure geostigma and stuff, but that's Advent Children's stuff.
Yeah, it says that she also tried to get spirits that are in the live stream,
exactly,
basically on her side, and
by instilling knowledge of herself into them, so they can help her. This is extremely important. And still, I'm not sure about the wording, but it's kind of transfer her own knowledge into those still remaining ancients and other souls that are there that may be able to help her. This is like 99% what she did to her past self. Not sure how she managed to go back in time or to connect to her past self. Maybe it's also because the live stream is timeless, not just the Whispers.
Exactly.
But
that's what I think
as well. Yeah,
and she's able to kind of communicate with herself through all timelines, because she's endless now, because she died and she's in the live stream in the original timeline.
Yeah. That's exactly in what happens in the intro when her past self is sitting in front of the Mako leak. If you pay attention, when she opens her eyes, it's kind of a knowing smile for one, and for another, her eyes are glowing green, unlike anywhere else in the game. They're really, really glowing. It's not just a reflection. They're really, really glowing. Kind of like she just received more Mako energy or knowledge or something like that. Which is also why she immediately, after that, notices the Whispers. This is not really Sephiroth, even if Sephiroth's chant is heard in the background. It's most likely the Whispers that also noticed. Oh, that's something that's not meant to be. She's not meant to know this much.
Oh, okay.
She's not meant to have this knowledge yet. That's why she notices those, and she herself doesn't really know about those. And future Aerith hasn't really encountered those either. So she doesn't have any idea. So she's scared. Those are unknown entities. If it was Sephiroth, she might be scared too, but less so, because Sephiroth is a known entity. Those are not. And that's also why they try to harass her, that probably try to rip away the new gained knowledge she has, because she's not supposed to have those. The indication for that is in chapter 17, when she tells the other ones that she's lost in a maze, and the deeper she goes, the more lost she gets, and more away from the path she goes. And every time the whispers touch her, she loses a part of herself. And this is also very important. I interpret this as she gained knowledge of her future self, which is also part of her, of course. But each time the whispers touch her, they rip away a part of that knowledge, which she loses a part of herself. However, this she's lost in a maze and keeps straying from the path. This can be interpreted as the further they go, the more stuff changes, the less she knows what's going to happen, because it doesn't really match with her knowledge she has of the original timeline. I think this is multi-layered there. And yeah, it's hard to grasp what's actually happening, but at least this is what we can gather from the knowledge we have, from the scenes we see, from the hints we get. And yeah, there are so many hints throughout the game that she knows more. For example, the most egregious one is when she meets Cloud again in the church, and Reno shows up. She immediately wants his help or Cloud's help as a bodyguard. All right, you're a mercenary. Yeah, you do everything, right? You were a soldier, right? So she. First of all, this talk about being a bodyguard only happened afterwards, when he already escaped and was sitting on the church, or I think we're already walking over the debris. It wasn't before Reno showed up, or while Reno showed up. So this is a complete, a completely different turn of events, and because she said that, and because Reno then started to poke Cloud, or poke fun at Cloud. Aha, first class! Tell me something that's true. So I don't remember the exact wording, but it's he mocked Cloud and didn't really believe him, and this set off Cloud, and that's why the whole battle ensued in the first place, which didn't happen in the original game. So Aerith was the reason why Cloud charged Reno, and why they had to fight there, and why Cloud almost chopped off Reno's head, which then prompted the Whispers to interfere and throw them into the back part of the church where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and that's also probably where this was a slip up on Aerith's part, because she didn't really know how to actually wield this power, this knowledge effectively. And after that, there's a really long time where the Whispers don't show up around Aerith, because she knows she can't just say stuff that she's not supposed to. So this is really interesting. And also, while they're escaping, walking along the planks, just underneath the roof of the church, Cloud asks, "What are those things?" And Aerith says, I don't know. Maybe they're no. Let's just drop it. She has an idea, kinda, but she doesn't quite know. But she knows she can't say anything, because this would muck up things even more. So she just keeps silent. So this is interesting. Also later, she knows about Marlene before Tifa says anything. You could argue that she might have put one and one together or 2 and 2 together in the train graveyard where Tifa mentioned Marlene's name.
Right.
And then mentioned about there's a girl and girl Marlene. Okay, yeah, but no, she knew about Marlene. She knows.
She did.
Yeah, she did. And it's even more apparent later when she actually meets Marlene, and then Marlene talks about Daddy, and Aerith never met Barrett, never heard about Barrett's name, nothing, and she knew. Oh, Barrett. Yeah, girl, you knew everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and what's even more interesting there's also this weird glitchy thing going on when she touches Marlene, and then Marlene is kind of surprised, and Aerith puts a finger on her lips. Shh, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she instilled at least some knowledge into Marlene, and maybe a little bit of ancient juice or Cetra juice. Because Marlene, in the ending, you might remember that she feels Barrett calling out to her through the flowers.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
she does. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a chat with a few people on my Discord about this, and we came to the conclusion that this might be, because Aerith knows she's gonna die, this might be kind of passing on the torch and keeping the Cetra essence alive. It's also interesting, they might have had this idea in the original too, but this didn't really come to fruition. But in this, in the ending sequence, which is pre-rendered, which they couldn't alter this in any way. There, Marlene feels the flower girl when the live stream comes to help everyone. So even then, she felt the flower girl. So they might have had a few ideas there, but dropped it in the game as a whole. But the remnant is still there in the ending because they couldn't change this anymore.
That makes sense.
Yeah, this could be. I'm pretty sure they're going with Marlene somewhere.
Yeah.
Also, where was this? I think Final Fantasy Peasant mentioned this in at the end of his last video, where he heard about a crackpot theory that Marl, that the old lady, the landlord, landlady, could be Marlene, like a future Marlene, but this doesn't really make sense unless the timelines are completely messed up. But let's not go there. I just wanted to mention this because, well, I don't know. Food for thought, maybe? I don't know. And maybe because the names are extremely close, like Marlene, like an adult version of Marlene.
That's interesting.
And she's so close with the others. She knows about Avalanche. She supports them, gives them free rooms to stay in, and I'm interested in other people's takes on this because I have other videos to tackle first, like everything I'm talking about right now.
Wow, that's insane. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
She's dressed pretty differently than everybody else, too.
Yeah, that's true. Also, the hairdo is pretty distinct.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Well, depends if Aerith really made Marlene her successor, and Marlene in the end has to, for some reason, like, come back in time if this time stuff gets even more convoluted in the future. I have no idea. Maybe the rationalist in me says, nah, this is just coincidence. This is not going anywhere because we have too little evidence for that. Because everything I've talked about so far has tangible evidence. Might still be kinda not true in a way, but it has real evidence at least. This is why I talk about this so in depth, because I think this is what's happening here, and this is where they're going with this. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is about everything that needs to be said about Aerith. What's interesting is that after they get rid of Fate, kill the Whispers and everything, it really feels like she has no idea where it's going next, because I think Tifa asks her what now, and she just shakes her head, like with a kind of a sad expression, because, well, now I have no idea anymore. I don't know what to say. Sorry, Tifa. Kind of like that. Which makes sense, because now the original timeline she knew about doesn't really apply. Maybe the main parts, but she's still, like us fans, she doesn't really have an idea what's actually going to happen. We don't know. We hope the main chain of events still happens, but Aerith doesn't have the interview with Kitase saying, no, we're staying true to the main events. Those will still happen, but yeah, she has no idea what's happening now. Well, she might still feel that she has to die, because that's also something interesting that Maximilian Dude mentioned, that certain events are like fixed points in time. They happen in all the timelines. No matter what happens, those points are fixed. This could be Meteor Fall, this could be Aerith's death, this could be Black Materia, like a few main things that need to happen, that have to happen, that happen anyway, because even wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff has to have a few anchors, otherwise it will just explode and everything will be completely out of bounds, nuts, and shattered. So yeah, this could be that a few events are fixed points in time space. One of them, Aerith's death. However, it will happen, but yeah.
The thing is like, it has to play out, doesn't it? Like the original, because if it doesn't, then their future selves are not who they are. Like Sephiroth would not be who he is in the future.
Aerith won't be in the live stream.
All of the original things didn't happen. So how does it make sense? It's like a time continuum paradox or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't make any sense because those events make him who he is. So, okay, like if they don't happen, then they aren't who they are. So then wouldn't their future selves cease to exist? Because of the fact that those things didn't happen originally the way that they did?
It will be a time paradox, for sure.
So that's why it's kind of like I'm trying to rack my brains and I'm like understanding all of this stuff. And what you're saying to me, though, like everything that you've said does make sense. It does make sense completely.
I hope so.
And I can see it does make sense. I can see that's probably the way that it is. The Marl being a future Marlene, I'm not sure, maybe, but that's kind of crazy and another thing to kind of go into. It's like, do you know what I'm saying? That it's
just too far off right now and doesn't have really any evidence besides the name.
Yeah.
And maybe a few things she does to, why she's such an advocate for Avalanche and helps them in any way she can. But this can also be for other reasons, because she has known them. Maybe something happened in the past. They helped her out, or you have no idea. Anything can happen. But I still won't rule it out completely. I'll just put it on the side and say, just keep this in mind, because if anything else pops up that might support this, I might roll with it. But for now, it's just in a drawer, somewhere deep down, and maybe in a double floored drawer down there in a secret room. But it's there. Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
So, also, sorry, I was reading the live stream White too, and it does say, the part where Aerith is in the live stream and she's noticing that the souls are entering the live stream and their spirits are filled with hate. So then she tries to heal them, and then she kind of dissolves their positive memories into the live stream and trying to help them, basically, because they are they have so much hatred because of everything that's going on the surface. That kind of explains the train graveyard part for me, because they're ghosts and spirits of people, and it's kind of like, isn't there's like one of those ghosts that it's like it recognizes Aerith throughout that whole thing. So it could be that that's like a spirit of somebody that she's helped in the live stream,
maybe
after she died in the original, and because those spirits exist probably in all timelines, right? So maybe that's why it kind of is looking at her like that, and everyone's like, what's going on? Trying to figure it out.
My takeaway from this whole graveyard sequence is that all those ghosts are dead people or dead children who can't return to the live stream because Eligor is keeping them from going, because maybe Eligor is feeding off of like the spirits of dead, mostly children probably, because it seems like only children got lost there and turned into ghosts. Because as soon as we kill Eligor, all the ghosts can disappear into the live stream particle effects, and they're actually gone to the afterlife, going back to the planet. That's my takeaway from there. But I'm pretty sure that this one is a spirit that really doesn't want to be a part of this whole Eligor scheme, and doesn't want to be a bad ghost, like a mischievous ghost, like the other ones are. Why this is also why he has this sad face, unlike the other ones. Like the one that doesn't belong to the others, and is sad that he can't go on to the afterlife and can't like escape this eternal torment of being a ghost and being bound to Eligor, whatever. It's hard to say in detail, but yeah. That's how I understood it. And Aerith, of course, has the ability to talk to live stream, talk to dead people. Or, yeah, she also was able to communicate to Elmira's dead husband when he died. So this is, yeah. I think this is just Aerith being Aerith and doing Cetra stuff in the end. Because spirits she helped in the live stream, they first needed to return, or need to return to the live stream, and those ghosts haven't returned yet.
No, but it does say that, it says that the woman discovered that there was a growing number of spirits that refused to be absorbed by the live stream. So those spirits could be people who had spite, who didn't want to be absorbed into the live stream, but eventually the Eligor actually was formed from that spite that actually
maybe
wouldn't let them be absorbed into the live stream, essentially. I don't know if that makes any
it
sense,
could have
which
a
is
parallel,
why
yeah.
kind of it's like that's why they recognize Aerith, because she's dead in the OG timeline, who's in the live stream, who's trying to help those people get absorbed into the live stream and get rid of those bitter feelings of hatred that they have towards, I guess, everything that's happened because of Sephiroth. That's what it said. That's what I understand a little bit better about that whole thing. Because remember, we were both talking about how like that part was a little. It kind of felt like it was misplaced in the grand scheme of everything that you experienced throughout the story.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
for me, it kind of helps explain that a little bit more, so then I can understand why that happened.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I also just remembered that there's this scene where Aerith gets like carried away by this ghost tornado, and then she sees other kids, dead kids, kids or spirits of kids playing hide and seek, and she, as a kid, also tries to
Exactly.
but they never find her. So it seems like she was playing hide and seek with those children back in the day, because she already had this connection to those soul spirits. Maybe this is also one of those who played with her back then. Maybe.
Okay.
But I'm still kind of wonky on this part.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit off and weird, but yeah. Anyway, this is a tangent again, but it's fine. I think the only actual thing that's missing here, or that's left, is the actual ending that happens after they defeat Sephiroth and after the Edge of Creation, right? I think we have. Oh no, something. I just remembered something about Sephiroth. Remember the feathers?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I have unlocked this mystery quite yet, but I'm pretty sure whenever a feather appears, Sephiroth's will kind of enters this realm again, or imposes influence in some way.
Okay.
Because in the reactor, instead of someone telling Cloud, "Watch out, this isn't just a reactor," only the feather falls down and dissipates into the grate, which is probably Sephiroth first trying to connect, but instead of letting his original vision or flashback play out, it kind of overrides it. Why, I don't know, but this is the first time. And then sometimes when Sephiroth leaves, there's a feather. Or also when they step into the elevator once in Shinra HQ, the feather also falls down just before the door closes. I'm not quite sure what happens after, but I still remember this one. And there are also several feathers flying or falling down when Whisper Sephiroth appears right at the end of the highway. And because this is a much stronger interference of Sephiroth in the timeline. And at the very end, after Cloud and the others come back from the Singularity and the Edge of Creation, Cloud still has Sephiroth's feather in his hand, which then disappears or dissipates when he's closing his fist. Which kind of tells me that that Sephiroth, like the Advent Children version of Sephiroth, leaves this timeline again because now Fate is gone. His main work is done. He has brought Cloud on the path, hopefully. This version of Sephiroth might appear again later. Like in later games, it might happen, maybe not. It all depends on how he plans to maintain everything that will happen to make his plan work. But yeah, it's just a thought I had that the first feather we see is the first interference of Sephiroth's will in this timeline, and at the end, when the feather dissipates, because we don't really see a feather actually dissipate like this. It's just at the first time it kind of does, because it's Sephiroth couldn't really connect yet, because the actual connection happens later in Sector 8. But in the reactor, he couldn't really connect yet because Cloud didn't really remember Sephiroth or remember Nibelheim. But in Sector 8, he remembered Nibelheim, and therefore the connection to Sephiroth got stronger, hence he was able to swoop in or connect to Cloud and mess with him. That's my interpretation. And in the end, the feather disappears for good. So it could be that Advent Children Sephiroth is actually now has left the timeline. But we'll see in the next game. It's hard to say.
Yeah, exactly, because he's his ultimate self. Like he doesn't need to be that anymore. Like you said, like Genova.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that hasn't happened yet. I guess we don't know if that has happened yet. Like the Sephiroth that takes Cloud to the edge of creation or the edge of the world, I mean, of the universe or wherever he is.
This could be the way, way future Sephiroth, like the ultimate future Sephiroth, who already kind of overcome his fate, but didn't manage to like prevent the end of the world and the live stream, which is why he needs Cloud for that to survive the end of the world. Kind of could be. So yeah. Anyway, we talked about this.
Yeah.
Before.
So do you think that? So you think that Sephiroth wanted you to defeat the Harbinger of Fate and the Arbiters of Fate and all that, so he could absorb it, and that was his plot, like his.
He could absorb it to then be defeated as the Whisper version, so that, or at least make sure that Cloud and the others defeated the Whispers for good. Because when he appears, Cloud has more incentive, or a bigger incentive to get rid of Sephiroth, or get rid of the entity that represents Sephiroth there. He had a few opportunities to kill him, but he didn't. So he didn't really want to kill them, but he wanted to give them a really hard time, like push them to the limit, to incentivize them to kill him, which Cloud did in the end.
You said that at the end, though, he absorbs all of the Whispers and can control them.
He does, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so his ultimate goal was to destroy Fate.
Yeah.
So he could just absorb it and control Destiny himself.
Yeah, or even for Cloud and the others to destroy the Destiny he controls there. Well, it's hard to say. It seems like the Whispers, like the essence of the Whispers, is exploded, is gone, as we see in the ending, which with all this golden yellow glitter particle effect. This is actually gone. And now when there's no Fate steering anything, Sephiroth can do whatever. Like, he's not bound by Fate anymore, and his fate was to be consumed by Jenova, be defeated by Cloud.
Right.
That's about it. That's how I see it.
Yeah, but the thing is that so is everybody else's fate, so...
Yeah, sure.
Too bad, Sephiroth.
Yeah. The thing is now, what I predict is... at the Edge of Creation, we already had this last Sephiroth fight. We had a normal fight against Sephiroth in like gameplay wise, with his wing, like the Advent Children version, with the meteor looming over our heads, where it counts down from 7, which also ties into the 7 seconds thing. And then he drags Cloud out of his body through this wormhole effect to the end, where the Omnislash thing happens. However, because at that point, Sephiroth is kind of all-knowing and knows exactly what Cloud will do and can block all of his Omnislash attacks. And I kind of think that this scene we saw in the original, Cloud using Omnislash against Sephiroth, might not... It might still happen, but it will be kind of a repetition, which I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But I'm pretty sure they showed us this now, because the end of this Final Fantasy VII Remake project will probably end completely differently, with not just Cloud getting rid of the control Sephiroth has in his head, but like utterly and completely either this, or it turns out completely different, like something we can't even fathom. I hope something like this happens, but it could be that they, in the end, like destroy Jenova, essence of Jenova, Sephiroth will, everything like this, that's completely gone, and the planet is then free of any scourge that plagues him right now, or plagues it right now. This could be where they're going, and then the whole ending sequence, the final bosses will be different. Maybe they still... he will still appear as like this Bizarro Sephiroth and the Safer Sephiroth, or kind of versions of that, but the whole ending could turn out completely differently. Like just the ending. Everything before is plus minus the same, with a few deviations and curveballs and stuff, but the ending could be completely different. It also makes sense because the theme of this is not just in name remake, it's really a remake of the timeline, a remake of the story.
Destiny.
And if Destiny, if it ends at the same note and like practically the same, it wouldn't really be a resolution to anything. So the ending has to be different, or else everything they established so far wouldn't really make sense in my opinion. Like the actual ending, everything before can still be sort of the same and lead to almost the same end, but the ending itself needs to be different, because otherwise there's no resolution or no actual end or payoff for everything that's been before in this remake project. So yeah, this is probably why they showed us this now, because this won't happen then, and they didn't want to deprive us of this epic scene in the end. However, it's for those who are looking forward to Cloud pummeling Sephiroth with the Omnislash and they're just utterly obliterating him, might not happen anymore, which is a shame. So maybe it happens then. Maybe it's still like Cloud's last stand until Sephiroth then disappears completely. Maybe. It's at this point it's just pure speculation. As is also this 7 seconds thing, although 7 seconds might refer to the end of the world in terms of meteor. Like Cloud has at some point 7 seconds time to avert like the end of the world. And since Sephiroth was counting down from 7, while meteor was looming during the last phase of the battle, might refer to Meteor 2. So that's where I'm currently standing.
Okay.
Any other thoughts or stuff you want to say or ask before we go into the ending itself, like the ending scenes?
No, I thought we were on predictions now.
Oh, okay. Well, the ending scenes also lead to predictions anyway, so
yeah,
we're already there almost.
We didn't talk about Zack at all.
Exactly.
And I want to talk about Zack, and I want to talk about the Zack scenes, and I guess the Whisper's being destroyed and he's alive, and now there's an alternate timeline where Zack actually survives at the end, and so does Cloud. So, and where they could take the story into the next parts, I guess. And I read some things online that do make sense, some other things that don't, in my mind, really make any sense at all. So did you want to talk about that and then talk about our predictions?
Sure. The thing is, before they enter the portal, before they enter the singularity, they have this this premonition of, well, not really a premonition. It's more like a memory of the live stream. The whispers they're shown. It's like the Crisis Core scene 1 for 1. But the interesting thing is, we already see the whispers running around Midgar as they are now. But this takes place a few days earlier. But Zack doesn't see them. Otherwise, he would react to that because his script is exactly the same as in Crisis Core. Now, I know what I forgot before. I forgot to talk about something. I need to interject this really quick. Cloud's visions of the future. Because Cloud has memories, like the stuff he remembers, memories that his mind actively suppresses, like when Aerith says Zack's name, he doesn't hear it, his mind suppresses it. When they meet those two Shinra grunts and he remembers Cloud, and then he suppresses the memories again because it would just, otherwise his persona would crumble. And then there's the Sephiroth illusions we've talked before. And then there are the visions of the future. He sees the reunion. He sees Aerith dying. He sees a chunk of plate falling down in Chapter 3. He sees the burial of Aerith, like him carrying Aerith into the lake. And also he feels sadness when he sees at the start of Chapter 9 Aerith walk away. Like the same she does in the dream he has in the original game in Gongaga before they chase after Aerith to the Forgotten Capital. You know this scene in the Sleeping Forest where she pops her head out of a tree or behind a tree, talks with him, and then runs away. Here, she also pops her head from out behind of the debris at first when she meets Cloud or cuts off Cloud. And they talk, and then she walks away from him again, and then he has this maybe the feeling he had then in this dream. So those are things from the future that he shouldn't be able to see. And why does he see that? My prediction, or how I understand it, Aerith instills knowledge into Marlene. Aerith instills knowledge into Red 13. That's why Red then is immediately friendly towards them, and also knows about the whispers because Aerith kind of told him by giving him those memories. And I think she did the same by accident when they first met, and she grabbed his hand when she was frightened of those whispers.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why he has knowledge of the future too, but it's incomplete. It's not really. It was by accident, not purposefully, which is why it's just there and not accessible by Cloud. But when he has a strong reaction, emotional reaction to something that he did have an emotional attachment to in the original, he sees it, but only glimpses, which is very, very interesting. And I'm also not sure if those remaining or remnants of memories still remain after the game now, like going forward, if he still will have visions of the future, if they will talk about this, if they are gone now because it's a completely different timeline, has no connections anymore to the original timeline, no idea. It's something we need to see. But I really wanted to bring this up because this is also an important part, especially in terms of Cloud. But now back to Zack.
Yeah. I'm just holding on here because I got things brewing.
For predictions.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I hope you don't forget. I try to be brief here because the Zack thing, this is the only thing of the remake I kinda don't like because it opens another can of worms that it just adds another layer of.
So remember when they're fighting against the Arbiters of Fate and stuff, and they're getting the memories, like the future and everything inside of their minds, like it's going inside. Don't they show? They show something. Is it Advent Children? They show the end of Advent Children or the beginning of Advent Children or something.
They show
or the end of the original game.
Yeah, they show 500 years in the future with Red 13, but it's Advent Children footage. They show Meteor, which is Advent Children footage from the part which is told by Marlene. Oh, this is also interesting. Why does Marlene tell the story of the original game? This also kind of ties into her having more connections to the planet than they kind of let on, because I don't think they told her everything. She probably has like kind of seen things too, maybe. Just to give some food for thought about Marlene. Anyway, yeah, we also see Cloud against Sephiroth, which actually symbolizes their 1v1 in the original game at the end, but it's their it's the Crisis Core Buster Sword, which is weird. Kind of strange there. Wasn't there oh, right. They also see Aerith dying, like the whole materia falling down. And I think the last one is Cloud burying Aerith. I think it's there. I don't quite remember when we see that. It might be one of Cloud's visions, or it's the last one during the Harbinger fight.
Yeah, so I remember reading something a while ago about the ending of the original game and how it was like it was kind of left up for interpretation, but people thought it was like bad ending where basically everything's destroyed, but humans also cease to exist, and then like Mother Nature and the live stream, like the planet can kind of go back to just being itself without human influence, because it's like Midgar is all rusty and grown over with like the nature is kind of retreated into Midgar and everybody's dead.
Yeah. Exactly. It could be because they don't show memories of Advent Children.
That like that's actually the ending of the game. Like they never actually said that's it's like, oh well, maybe, but it shows like Red 13 and he's got children and there's no humans.
Midgar's overgrown, yeah.
Midgar's destroyed, but it doesn't show. We don't know if there's actually humans that live in other towns outside of Midgar.
Yeah,
so
of course.
It's kind of like they didn't really want to say.
Yeah, we do hear children laughing at the very end before the scene ends. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it was meant to be vague, so that we can make up our own.
It could be children in the live
canon.
stream, though.
Yeah, sure, of course, could be both. But then comes Advent Children, which throws everything into the gutter.
Anyways, so
yeah,
moving on. So we are talking about Zach a little bit here. So, what are your thoughts on Zach?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I think we see. Hang on, when do we see the stamp cracker package? I think we see it after the fight, or do we see it before? I sometimes get stuff confused in my head.
I forget.
I need to check again, but I think it's afterwards. I think it's the scene right after the Edge of Creation. Yeah, I think this is right after the Edge of Creation with the second, then Biggs and the other ones. Like afterwards, after the fight is defeated, we see a different stamp, like a different breed of dog of stamp on this package, this cracker package, and he also wears a different hat. It's not like a military hat, a hard hat. It's more like a baseball cap, a green one with the stars. So the cap is different, and the breed is different. But still, the rest of the package is still exactly the same. It still says original in the top left. It still says stamps champs or champs. Stamps champs. The rest is exactly the same, just the dog is different. And what's also interesting, that I think someone on Reddit pointed this out, when the whispers disappear and this golden shower disappears, when you freeze frame and zoom in, you see that the reactors on the Midgar have a completely different design, like a rectangular design, not this round design. And maybe a few other details might be a little bit different too, but the reactors are the main takeaway, which also don't have numbers on them. But when we see our characters in the ending cinematic, and Midgar in the back, it still has the same reactors we always saw, like the round ones with the numbers and the logo. It's all the same. You could say, well, it's just a Midgar model in the far end. It's far behind, because this is still I think it's not pre-rendered. The sex scene, even the second one, is still not pre-rendered. Because there was the scene with Biggs and with Marl in Sector 7 are still in-game scenes. And it could be that this model is just a very low-res. However, there's also low-res models or low-res, even 2D representations of Midgar in Crisis Core, like in the back. And we still see the darker round ones with the numbers. So I'm pretty sure this is deliberate. We have a different Midgar reactor design. We have a different stamp design.
I thought that I noticed that as well, because I just rewatched the ending on YouTube and I was Midgar looks different.
Yeah,
like I didn't notice that, and then you just brought that up. So I think it's just their way of saying that, okay, like the timeline has changed now.
Yeah, it could be like there are a few different interpretations. One is that this is a timeline that has been always different, like in general the same, but always different. Like it had a different stamp design, different Midgar design, but the rest is still there. This timeline already existed, but now Zack lives, because Zack wasn't meant to live there. But since these whispers are now gone, he can't. They don't have the ability to have him die again. So this is, in my view, it's a different timeline, which now is also goes into a different direction. The thing is, which this is headache material, but let's say, as we talked before, there are so many different timelines with just different deviations, different scenes, different gold saucer dates, different whatever, or in this case, different stamp design, different Midgar design. And now, since the whispers are gone, they can't interfere anywhere anymore. This means that at each point they need to interfere, a new branch of timeline is created because they weren't able to prevent this. So let's say the plate doesn't fall, Cloud doesn't meet Aerith or something like that. What else? They died while during the escape when the ceiling crumbled, or everyone but Cloud died in the fire and explosion, also on the Midgar highway chase. Because if you remember when Cloud cut down the chopper, it exploded just in front of the other ones, and the Whispers had to shield them from the explosion, the fire. So each time they interfered, a new timeline will be created. However, and this is a paradox problem, if they now don't exist anymore, Sephiroth wouldn't have the means and the reason to go back in time to fix things, because Fate isn't there anymore to defeat. Unless you say, okay, this is just in a different timeline, like he went back there anyway to do this. Like in the timelines where the Whispers interfered, they still did this, and the timeline will continue, but there's a new one where they, as I said, headache material. It's without like drawing this on a whiteboard or something and really thinking about it. It might just end up in a paradox. And others have proposed that it might just be a rewriting history, like completely overwriting the timeline. Like Zack is now alive, and everything that now happens is, I don't know, different, but it still doesn't really make sense, because this doesn't account for the different stamp design and Midgar design, which has happened decades before. Like Midgar is at least 30 years old. So at least 30 years in the past, they had to have different plans for the reactor build, and Stamp might be even older, who knows? I don't think there's any lore about where and when Stamp got created. So this is also very old.
There must be something. There has to be something maybe that explains. I'm not sure. Maybe it was just their way to show like symbolism, to show that it was a different, like things are different now.
I'm pretty sure most of it is just to show, okay, there's a different timeline because
Stamp's it's a different timeline because Stamp's design's different. Yeah,
and the Whispers appear everywhere at the same time, at least in this part, because Midgar is now like the center of the problem they need to fix, and all the Whispers from all the timelines, like the complete force of the Whispers, are now focused on Midgar. You see in the first Zack scene where nothing has changed yet, you see
exactly
three or four Whispers floating around, but then they leave.
Yeah.
They leave for Midgar because they need it there. And they're not there anymore to make sure that Zack dies. Because they need to be there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a limited amount of force the planet can spare for the Whispers, for this, the Arbiters of Fate. Because lifestream is not limitless. There's also souls that need to be reincarnated. There's the weapons that need to be there. They're sleeping right now, but still, the planet can't just like use up all the essence it has to fend off everything. I think it's also limited. That's why it also ties into the notion of the Whispers, like the real Arbiter of Fate, the Harbinger is also a weapon, like an entity, a limited entity. It's not just limitless. Could be interpreted in that way. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's mostly for fan service and also to explain or give hints to what's happening. I'm not sure if we can like solve everything right now because we don't know where it leads. It could be everything. It could be that Zack and Cloud are still walking there. They're still not at the very end of this cliff, because in the original it's at the very end of this cliff where Zack got shot.
Yeah, so maybe there's still like a soldier alive, and then shoots him in the back.
Come in. Yeah, or they just come in later because they heard, oh, nobody's responding, all are dead, we need to go there.
Exactly.
People had theory that maybe Song was on his way there, because we only see Reno and Rude on the chopper with flying in Rufus. You don't see Song there. And I'm pretty sure he's not just waiting in his office for the return for the others. Maybe he got pulled off to take care of this. Also makes sense because he had ties to Zack too. He was, I think, in charge of missions where Zack was his bodyguard or his muscle.
Dude.
It could be anything. Yeah, that's true. It's just one thing that might be able. Yeah, might be.
Yeah, we don't know any. Like, the thing is that, okay, they showed us like the Zack timeline, like, but the thing is like every single time you come to a decision, there's an alternate reality, I think, that exists based on the decision that you make. So if you make this decision, that reality is the reality that you forged for yourself, kind of because of the decisions you made. But there's always the alternate reality that if you made the other decision or chose something different, then that reality also exists at the same time, but things are different because of the decision that you made. And it's still you, but it's from an alternate reality based on, and that's like comes back to everything that we know about, I don't know, string theory, I guess, or something like that, and like
parallel universes,
time travel and universe and multiverse theory and everything. Like, so it could be that it's not that like things are changed. It could be that it's an alternate reality based on the decisions that were made up until that point in the story when Zack was fighting those soldiers, and then like we just don't know.
But the thing is, if they showed this and established something, so they need to go somewhere with this. This has to have meaning, not just, oh, cool fan service, oh, okay, Whispers are in all timeline, oh, there are different timelines. If this is just to show this and the Zack thing doesn't go anywhere, I kind of would be disappointed. But on the other hand, I also kind of want this just to be its own segregated thing and not come up anywhere, because it would make so much more different or complicated in future games, because they already have to tackle everything that's been there, all the new stuff they want to add, the expansions, and then also include, let's say, a separate timeline that runs parallel, and we have Laguna sections, as Maximilian Dude said. I think he said this. I'm not quite sure. I've listened to so many things. Laguna sections, which we see like Zack survived, so he's the mercenary and not Cloud. Maybe Cloud joins, maybe Cloud is just recovering, and they have to maybe shove him somewhere, and he's in the Leaf House recovering, where everyone else is doing their thing. Like instead of Cloud, it's just Zack, and everything plays out mostly the same. They also experience Aerith's death and all the other fixed points in time, maybe. But this is all. If you've watched the Easy Allies podcast, this is nothing new for you.
No.
So all those things are possible. Maybe even overlap of those realities or different universes, whatever. Killing Sephiroth from in all the timelines combined. Everything is possible. Not sure if I like those things, but it could work. But for now, it's probably better for all our sanity to not theorize too much, because there are too many unknown variables.
Yeah, I don't know how that makes sense though.
Yeah.
Okay, so Zack's alive, and then you just, because somebody suggested, or somebody had proposed that, oh well, it'll be like Zack gameplay because he's alive now, and I don't know. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, same.
I think that was just them showing that the timelines are changed now. So there is a timeline where Zack actually survives, but the timeline that we're going to be playing through is not that timeline. Like, I think that we're going to play through the timeline of the original, and like how
yeah,
we
the
are
remake.
continuing on throughout the story. Exactly. Like at the end when they destroyed all that, they're still alive and they're back in their original timeline where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, like the ones they've been before, like the remake timeline, not the original
Yeah,
timeline.
the
This
remake
is different.
timeline. The remake
The remake
timeline, I
timeline,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah. But they're just showing, oh, look, like
There's more. Yeah.
there's other timelines that are now possible because Zack does end up surviving during one of them. But I don't know if we're gonna end up playing through like part 2 as Zack, and then we're like, you know, and Cloud is, like you said, he's like repairing, like he's recuperating or whatever, and I don't know if I don't think we're gonna get that.
Unless it's a DLC pack, like just
yeah.
showing highlights of a bombing run, the 2nd bombing run, somewhere Shinra HQ, then later, I don't know, but still it will be, might feel weird, or maybe it could work if they like sprinkle in such scenes during part 2, like not really playable, maybe playable, but doesn't have to be. Just like that we see how it could play out. But if they do that, they need to go somewhere with this. Then they most likely have to have Zack also fight Sephiroth in the end, which is probably like one being in all the timelines, like the Whispers are.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think Zack is in. Like, after all that happened and it showed Zack alive at the end and all that stuff, like, I don't think Zack is alive in the remake timeline now.
Oh, no.
And fate is, like, history is changed. Because then the characters wouldn't be who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
They would be completely different, and Zack would not, I mean, Cloud would not be the main character.
Yeah.
Cloud would be a no one. He would be a weakling and not anything. It would be Zack. He would be playing as Zack.
That's why it would be then a second timeline that we just have glimpses of.
That might be a separate game completely that's just not even have anything to do with part 2. But I don't think that Zack is alive in this timeline.
Oh no,
because
he's dead.
That, like you said, the whole paradox thing happens where the characters aren't who they are because those original things didn't end up happening, where Zack does die and then Aerith has her heart broken, and then that conversation doesn't happen in the playground and all this stuff. Like, it's just insane, honestly. We could rack our brains all day long trying to figure it out. We'll never figure it out, which I love. But I just don't think that I don't think that that's gonna be the story in the second part. So just talking about our predictions for the story, maybe it's gonna be similar to the original.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Maybe there are, like, I'm not sure. I honestly don't even know what to say, because they did show Biggs alive, and they did show Jesse's glove, and you know, I know that they showed Zack alive in that timeline. So like, who knows what can happen, because they showed that, and that's a change. So who knows, honestly. But somebody suggested online that maybe it's beat by beat, like retelling of the original with changes like this game, but then you notice that people actually already know who you are, because maybe their future selves are there already or something like that. Like, they look familiar to the people in the world because the current,
but then timelines would overlap.
Exactly. Like, their current selves, like there's themselves in the timeline in the original are still there, but then also their future, like the remake, the party of the remake are also there as well. So, like, I don't know if all the timelines are fused together or something. Like, who knows? Anyway, I was like, well, it kind of sounds interesting. Like, you kind of, as a plot device, like when you're going to all the different towns and people, it's kind of like everybody's memories are kind of hazy, but they recognize you, but you've never been there before. That would be interesting. But then, like you said, it's just, how would you explain like all of that, right? Like, it just doesn't completely make entirely a lot of sense. But
the only thing I could see an overlap or like a fusion of timelines is at the very end, like when we actually fight for everything, the whole culmination of the remake project. That's the only thing I could see. The Sephiroth at that point in time is like omnipresent, which is also why it could be that our parties or even Zack or whoever from other timelines could be fighting Sephiroth too, like not in our timeline, but like from a different point.
Exactly. That's true.
That's the only thing I can see where an overlap could happen. What is also very interesting and not quite sure is we see Biggs alive, we see Marl and the others rebuilding Sector 7.
Yeah.
Is that in our remake timeline?
Yes, exactly.
Is that in the same timeline as Zack? And if so, why? If are those each and every one of those different timelines? Because what's very interesting is in the shot or in the scene with Marl where they rebuild Sector 7. The thing is, first there is, I think, a little bit less destruction there. You also don't see like a fallen plate all around the place, and you see above them is the collapsed Sector 6 plate and the intact Sector 7 plate in distance, which is interesting. Which also, because it's in-game, it's not pre-rendered, this might be a mistake. Like
that's what I was just about to say.
Yeah. either it's meant to be that the Sector 7 plate does not fall or has not fallen. It's just because of the battles and the choppers that crash down. They need to rebuild a little bit, which could make sense. But then still, the skybox is still wrong because they're underneath Sector 6, which would mean that they carried all those debris stuff in Sector 6 and rebuilt. And you could say, okay, yeah, the plate fell, and this is why they tried to salvage a few things they loved, as the Seventh Heaven sign, the broken sign, carried this over to Sector 6, where they are now, like through the tunnels and through the playground and stuff, and rebuilt a new home there because Sector 7 is destroyed. But then why is the plate still intact? So I'm pretty sure it's a combination of stuff that's correct and stuff that's wrong. Like the skybox is wrong. Something has to be wrong. Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. This is also why I think, let's say, the plate hasn't fallen. It's different timeline. Like this is one timeline. One timeline where Biggs is injured is the plate has fallen, but he made it out, or someone could save him, but not Jesse, because only the glove and the bandana were they were only able to salvage that, not Jessie herself, unfortunately. Biggs, we have no idea. Sorry, not Biggs, Wedge. No idea what's with Wedge, which is why I'm pretty sure we meet him again. Otherwise, it would be a really weird ending for Wedge. Like, if we don't see him again, it would be so weird and dissatisfying. And yeah, I'm kind of leaning into the direction that each scene we see, like the Zack scene, the Big scene, the Moral scene, all different timelines, and not our timeline right now. Because otherwise, it would feel weird that only the Zack version of this, or the Zack scene, is a different timeline. The others are not. Still with the changes, it feels a bit wonky. But yeah, if those are different timelines, we won't see them unless the timelines in the end converge, and then we see everyone again, like everyone's alive again, because all the timelines are combined, and then everyone has to live because they live in at least one of the timelines, blah blah. I kind of get a bad feeling about this. Because I don't like endings where just everyone lives. We have Kingdom Hearts for that. Everyone lives there, kind of. Would also go counter some of FF7's themes about loss and accepting loss and growing from this loss and surviving and dealing with things. If everyone survives in the end anyway, if it's just because they survive, because of wibbly wobbly timely wimey, because of converging timelines, because of this, it just doesn't sit well with me. So I hope this won't be the case. But still, then why introduce all those different timelines if you're not going to do anything with them? So it's yeah, we're going in circles right now. It's
Yeah,
it's weird.
that's crazy.
It's really weird. So for actual predictions, it's extremely hard. Besides saying, well, the main beats will be intact, but everything in between or like during those beats, as long as they don't change the main storyline, anything could change. Anything, frankly. What's interesting is I've heard people talk about the inclusion of Yuffie early on, like if they decide we have to start by scratch or start from scratch in terms of gameplay, like we lose all the materia, we lose all levels, whatever, or maybe at least the materia and the inventory. Like in Calm, we get robbed by Yuffie, everything is gone, and by the time we see her, she has sold everything already. So, or maybe a few things, and we get those back. And this might be one possibility to reset the inventory. A level reset is not really a problem because this is just like relative to the power level we have in part 2. It's still like level 1 in part 2 is still the same as level 50 at the end of part 1, just on a different scale. I can live with that, but this is just numbers anyway. But abilities need to be there. We need to still have the same limit breaks, because why would we forget those? Oh, well, singularity stuff, they forget everything. We need to start from scratch. Well, yes, but nah, I don't buy that. The thing is, we don't really have that much or that many limit breaks and abilities anyway, so it could work that we have those from start and gain new ones. Like losing weapons, losing inventory, losing materia. Yeah, you could maybe somehow explain that by being robbed or losing all those things by traveling into the singularity and then going back out again. I don't know. It's weird. I really hope they retain everything. Like, especially since they're now not 100% sure if they should release big parts, like full games, or shorter bursts, like maybe until and up to Junon, and then up until Nibelheim, and then up until the Temple of the Ancients, and then up until Meteor. I don't know. This one interview kind of alluded to that they are still not quite sure how to deliver it and where to do the breaks. So it could be that they indeed have planned for continuous inventory, because there are so many material we don't have in this first game. There's so many missing. Like, we don't have any flare, we don't have any ultima, we don't have the contain material, we don't have many blue material like the added cut or steel as well, or all those things. So many materials from the original are still missing. We don't have a toad materia. Some other Berserk. I think Berserk is also not there, like the Mystify materia. We can't, or can we? Can we use? We can use sleep, mute, or silence in Berserk. Oh, true. This is the subversion materia, I think. I just never used it. That's because I forget.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. But yeah, there's so many things missing. We only have 2 limit breaks. We don't have too many abilities. So it might just be that we can carry over everything, not the levels. Well, even the levels, because we're stopping at level 50. So next game stops at level 100. The other one level 150 or something. I don't know. I don't really care either, because it's just numbers. But carrying over the whole equipment, the whole inventory would make sense. And then when all the parts are out, whether they are like building up on this game now with DLC, which I think is a bad idea, or they just deliver 2 or 3 more full-fledged games. If we have all of them installed, we can just go from one to the other and kind of play through the whole thing in one go with one progression curve. This would be the ideal solution, but yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But other than that, I don't think I have too many predictions. Oh, one thing I have is regarding Sephiroth, and when we see him on the boat to Costa del Sol. At that point, the Sephiroth from the Northern Crater hasn't met anyone, hasn't met Cloud and friends yet. So, and Genoa, not really. So if I'll find it very interesting, or I hope they will do this, that when they meet Sephiroth on the boat, Sephiroth, or Genovaroth, as many call him, has no idea who Cloud is and still says the same line, "Who are you?" And then flies away and we have to fight Genova. This would be doubly impactful because Cloud and friends have fought against Sephiroth, had like a visceral experience with him directly. And then they chase him, finally stand against or in front of Sephiroth again. And he just says, "Who are you?" And like, what are you talking about? We defeated you back there. This would be a really, really impactful scene, in my opinion, I think. I hope they're going for this. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what I think anymore. I am literally sitting here trying to rack my brains. Like, I'm honestly just sitting here trying to understand, and like, really, it's just, I have no clue anymore. I think that it's just, we're going to get a replay of the original events, but they're going to be changed because of everything that happened with Fate being destroyed.
Exactly.
I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
Yeah, hard to say.
I don't know. I don't think we're going to get any Zack gameplay.
Don't think so either.
Zack cutscenes from an alternate timeline that is helping somehow with what they're doing there. I'm not sure.
That's the only thing I could see. If they're going with this or those parallel timelines and do something with it, I can only really realistically see like cutscenes, like just a window into other when we go to sleep,
exactly,
like, or something, and then we see Laguna scenes. Party goes to sleep and we see something else. Laguna scenes, we did get to play those. So maybe because Zack might have the exact same like moveset or fighting style as Cloud, it would work. And it's just Cloud and not the other ones, or maybe the other ones too, because we already have those fighting styles. So might be just it could be just short things or short scenes to see how did those scenes play out if Zack was alive. But then they really have to go for something like in the end, in the very end, in the last fight, they have to build up to something if they do that. But still, I think it might muddy the waters a little bit. So what I also could see if that we have maybe 1 or 2 more Zack scenes, not really from the other timeline, but maybe in a different fashion, so that we still get only teases of Zack, because Zack doesn't get relevant until the Northern Crater, where Sephiroth shows Cloud the real photograph with Zack on it. That's the first time we see him, or we even hear about or know about Zack in the original game. And of course, later in the live stream, they might even expand on that. That's That's also something I could see.
So it's a play-by-play. Think about this. It's a play-by-play, like, just recreation, not recreation, but you know what I'm talking about. How it's like the story beats and everything are there, but it's a little different. So part 3, like Meteor, all the same. Like it's just like all of that, and then like I'm seeing it as you have to defeat Sephiroth at the end, like in the original. But this is level 6 shit. Are you ready for level 6 shit? Are you ready?
Yeah.
So I was just saying that it's just like you're fighting Sephiroth, like in the original, at the end of the original game. But here it's the same, but Sephiroth needs Cloud, and then I think that honestly, I think that everything gets destroyed, but I think Cloud will absorb the energy of everything. Like the life stream, just everything, and then destroys Sephiroth. The planet's dead. Everything's dead. And then Cloud essentially becomes a god instead of Sephiroth and creates life through the universe the way that he wants and will become what he's always wanted to become, basically. And move it to like a new planet kind of thing and start recreation like all over again. Kind of like Sephiroth, but it's actually Cloud, and Sephiroth is
it's like the
destroyed.
The good ending. Yeah. Have you watched Final Fantasy Peasant's theory about God Cloud?
I haven't.
Because he came to the same conclusion.
Oh, cool! That's I just came to this in my head as we're just talking about
that's
everything.
Interesting.
And I'm like,
that's cool.
Here's another thing. Do you know what's crazy? Just think about this for a second. Okay, so Cloud, let's say he absorbs the life stream, and which, you know, Aerith is dead. She's in the life stream, and so are all the other characters are dead, and he's just absorbed everything. And Sephiroth, I think, needs to have Cloud and tries to bond with Cloud, I guess, like absorb him and use him as a husk, like you said, like he wants to use him and like that, right? And basically it doesn't like happen the way that Sephiroth wants it to happen, basically. And
that's the point when this Omnislash battle in his mind could play a role again. So that's Sephiroth takes him as his vessel.
Wait a second.
Sorry, okay, I'll let you.
Shit here.
Sorry.
Okay, ready?
Pardon me.
Are you ready? Okay, so that, because it's like, isn't it, they battle, where do they battle? Didn't he say it's like the beginning of creation?
Edge of creation.
Yeah, so time and space doesn't exist. The world is not destroyed or alive, like nothing. It's probably nothingness. So Sephiroth has done all of this and then tries to absorb Cloud and everything, and it doesn't work out the way that he expects it to work out, basically. And fused together, they're like, and they're all fused together and everything. All that power, like everything, like, and it's actually Jenova. And that is what Jenova is in the original timeline. It's when Cloud fails, and then that goes through time and space and hits the planet after it's created in the original timeline, and all the things happen, the terrible things. Isn't that insane?
That's an interesting take.
Isn't that insane? Because if you look at Jenova, it looks like Sephiroth's hair, but also it could be like a woman. It has breasts, but it could be that's like, it kind of looks like Aerith.
Does she?
She's an ancient, right? So,
well,
I don't know, dude. I don't know,
she's
dude. That's
believed to be an ancient.
This is completely out there, but honestly, imagine that is what Jenova is. It's actually Sephiroth from the future who tries to absorb Cloud and all the energy and everything, and it actually mutates him and turns him into this thing, and then it just goes through space, and actually the world ends up being created, and then it smashes into it, but it ends up destroying everything, basically. And yeah.
Interesting, yeah. Well, this could be when Cloud fails. If he succeeds,
yes,
he
exactly.
beats Sephiroth, and then is
yes, because there's so much about Jenova we don't know. All we know is it's a calamity from outer space, and it's an extraterrestrial apparently, and the ancients are like refer to it as it or he, or depending on the version of the game, basically. And it's
depending on the person too, because it's Jenova appears as anyone in front of those to gain trust.
And Sephiroth calls it mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's because it's, he's got the cells inside and everything, but it actually just could be him. And it is him. It's just, it's when it fails at the end of the game, at the third part. And then that's what happens instead when you'd lose. Anyway, I just saw, I was just like,
that's interesting. I need to ponder about that to make sense of the details, how it could be possible. But it's like the concept is interesting that if you fail, the actual original timeline starts. Like this is how everything started because we failed in the future or something. Yeah, but
because it's the edge of creation, right? Like there's no timeline, like nothing. It's just that you're. Because then that's what Sephiroth wants, because he wants to forge ahead into the future. And I mean, he wants to just create everything the way that he wants and be all powerful and be a god. But obviously he wants to be free of Jenova. But Jenova has always been, that's what he ends up turning into in the end, because of the fact that he is
made up of our cells, Yeah, it's
anyway.
It's a mess, but a funny mess.
Level 6.
Definitely.
But yeah. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about, basically.
Yeah.
God, Cloud, and that's what happens with the good ending, and you destroy him, and then he has the power to continue, but everybody else is dead. Like, he just continues life. And that would come back to the fact that they don't want to reveal what remake means, because it's actually just remaking everything.
Remaking the world. Yeah.
Everything. The world, like everything, because he just ends up becoming God. And they do like that, because other Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 13 was like that.
I was about to say that,
Lightning becomes a god. Basically, she destroys God and becomes God, and all the
creates the world anew,
Yeah, she just creates, it's hinted at the end, is she creates a new world, and she's there, though, in that world, right? She's kind of like an angel, I guess. Like, we think that that's what it is. She travels through time and space, she creates the world, and there's no more, there's no more pain, there's no more, kind of like heaven, essentially.
Yeah, just a new world, but interesting enough.
But which is why she needs to harvest all of the souls, because she's getting ready to. That's in part 3, right? Because she's trying to get all the souls, because she's like, I'm creating a new world, and she wants those people to be able to come with her and experience that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm thinking kind of like that at the end of this.
It could be, because the Fate stuff is also new, which it was also a big thing in Final Fantasy 13. Toriyama, who came up with the Final Fantasy 13 stuff and all the or parts at least of the Fabula Nova Crystallis, is here the scenario director. So he's more in charge of what happens story-wise. I think Nojima drafts the first part of the script. He refines it. And then I think Nojima also refines it even more. Or maybe they the dialogue changes again when they actually record the lines, because they maybe sometimes notice, oh, this line doesn't really work like this, or we need to change it a little bit different. And when it's at the end, Nojima said he sometimes doesn't really recognize the script anymore, because it has changed so much that compared to his original draft. So Toriyama has influence, and if he wants to go this similar route, because Lightning was meant to be a female Cloud, maybe they go the same route, which would be a shame because that's just retreading his similar story ideas that were there before in a franchise that was not so well received comparatively. But yeah, if it's well executed, I'm on board. But let's just hope for the best.
So, talking about the Genova theory that I just came up with, y'all heard it here first. Just letting you know.
Yep.
So the beginning of creation and all that happens, and Genova then like crashes into the planet, and it says that everything's like destroyed and the ancients are dead and everything. Like, it's basically, in the scriptures it said, oh well, there's a promised land and everything. The promised land ends up just being the new reality, I guess, like that cloud creates as God cloud, which is in the scriptures that they believe in. Because I don't think that the promised land is an actual physical thing that Shinra can just find to turn into Neo Midgar, right? It's just like their version of heaven, which essentially could be the good ending when you actually do end up creating, like, becoming God Cloud or something like that. And the bad ending is you just turn into Genova and destroy everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You failed, right? Which ends up killing the Cedra. Everything happens in the main storyline. Everything's dying, and the same thing. Basically, history just repeats itself again, basically. But yeah, anyways.
This could be where the 7 seconds come into place.
Yeah.
If you succeed within those 7 seconds, whatever, however, and if you fail, Also, I think the ancients consider the live stream the promised land, like when they return back to the planet from the point of the ancients. But this kind of still ties into it because this God Cloud theory entails that Cloud is then the vessel for the whole live stream that will save the planet, which still is the promised land.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was thinking then.
Yeah, that's a nice theory.
Anyway, I have nothing else to say. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. But yeah. Anything else that you want to add?
I don't think so, because there's not too much else regarding predictions of the future. At least not right now. And I also see we're almost at 3.5 hours again. So I'm pretty sure this is a good way to just stop and not devolve into level 7 brain-breaking nonsense.
Right? Oh my god. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Level 6, though. You heard it here first. Level 6, Max Dude. You heard it here first. Level 6 theory. Cloud and Sephiroth fuse and fail, and all that power from the live stream creates Genova. There you go. So Genova is actually Sephiroth, Cloud, Aerith, all the souls of everything. You heard it here first, people.
Corrupted.
Anyway. So I guess we'll go ahead and stop the podcast right there. Thank you to everybody that's continued to, listen, and the people who are still with us after 3.5 hours to the end of this episode. I'm going to have an amazing time just editing this.
I bet, yeah.
But you know what? It's an incredible game, and we've waited so long for this game, and just to be able to sit down with you, Vyzz, is incredible, and talk to you about this and share our thoughts and opinions about everything with, the world and our audience is awesome. We hope that, you guys learn some things, and also, can start the process of theorizing. And a lot of people I know, like, talking to people on our Discord server as well, have already kind of come up with their own understanding and interpretation of everything that happened in the remake. And I think that that's the incredible thing that this game does, is that it doesn't answer all the questions, and it kind of asks more questions than it does answer and provide answers to the questions. And the conversation about this game is definitely going to continue into the future, and that's what I love so much about this game. And that's why I found this game so intriguing when I played it so many years ago, because honestly, it was just mind-blowing and so ahead of its time. And yeah, it's just been insane just being able to experience, going back into the world again and experience the game and through the remake. And we're just so happy that, you guys are here and listening to the podcast with us and supporting us. All right, so if you guys have any questions or ideas for topics that we might cover in our up-and-coming episodes, you can actually email us at thereunionpodcast@gmail.com. It's thereunionpodcast@gmail.com. We do have a Discord server, and it is the best way to kind of communicate with Vyzz and I, and, we can talk about any theories or anything that you guys want to talk about there on the podcast Discord. And also it's an awesome community because we do have a lot of people that are there as well that enjoy the game as much as we do, that you can communicate with if you guys are kind of feeling disconnected right now. The link to join our Discord server is actually in the description of every episode that we post everywhere. So if you guys want to follow us on Twitter, it's at reunion_podcast. We do have a Facebook page as well. It's at Reunion Podcast. We do post all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is the Reunion Podcast. We do have an Instagram account. It's at the Reunion Podcast. And Vyzz, did you want to drop your social media for people to be able to check you out and also check out the Cosmo Canyon Observatory?
Sure. So it's Cosmo Canyon Observatory on YouTube, CC_observatory on Twitter, and the link to our Discord server should also be in the description here somewhere. And I really thank you so much for indulging in another 3.5 hours of our ramblings. I hope you liked it. I know I liked it. It was so much fun to talk about all of this. And now I just need to bring all of this in a concise and understandable format for my upcoming videos, which will drop soon, I hope.
Yeah. And now you just need to go to bed.
Yep, definitely. No, it's past 11 p.m. now. It's take a shower, go to bed, sleep.
Especially talking about all this stuff, it's so insane. Like,
it is
just mind blowing, right? And it's just so exhausting because you're just like trying to wrap your head around everything, and it's just insane.
It is.
So if you guys want, the best way to support us here on the podcast is to like and subscribe and just spread the word about the podcast if you feel so inclined. I just want to say thank you so much, Vyzz, for joining me again today and for, joining me in all the previous episodes as well. It's been awesome having you here and talking to you about, this incredible game. And we are planning on continuing the podcast into the future. We do have some great ideas for some up and coming episodes as well, and I think we're just gonna both take a much needed break, and we'll be back super soon. And just want to say thank you so much, guys, for all your support.
Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart.
All right, guys, this is Kai and I'm signing off.
Take care, stay safe.
Bye, guys.